Let's get peppy. Welcome to the final installment of 2025. This is the third part of the PEPmas Peppy New Year Peps Giving crossover special. That means there's two other parts. So if you are just tuning into this one and you didn't know, you should go back, because honestly, you're not going to understand a word we say unless you watch the first two. That's not true. But nevertheless, you should watch the first two because it's a trilogy.
And this is not like the Star Wars sequels where you start with the end.
No. This is like the first three Star Wars, which were a good trilogy, and not anything else to do with Star Wars at all. So, that's what this is like. It's exactly like that. But today we have got John Barron.
Excellent.
Which I'm
You've
very
all
excited
been
about.
waiting 12 months for another installment of the Chaz Barron Hour.
We've been stirring that pot for 12 months just to make the brew the perfect temperature and flavour. And we will dine. We will sup today, Lachy. But we should say, before we get into John Barron, a couple of things. First of all, if you want to contact us during the holidays, tell you what, even though I'm not going to be paying any attention to the email address, you'll probably get a reply to me faster than you would have this year.
Yeah.
So what's the email address, Lachy?
Producer@pepthepodcast.com. That's producer@pepthepodcast.com.
Very well done. It's a great impression of me. And don't forget Discord, which you can see on the screen right now and in the blurb. And anything else they should know?
If you leave a comment on probably this video, we'll see it. I think we'll check this one.
Yeah, for a couple of days.
Yeah,
and
that's
then I'm
fair.
going to start watching movies again. Look, it's let's get on with the show. Before we go to John Barron, though, I want to hear, Lachy, about your trip to America, because we keep on teasing that you're going to tell us about America, because you were in America for like a month.
I was.
And look, let's not spend an hour on it, Lachy, but tell us what your takeaways were from your big holiday. Was there any news?
Oh, was there any? Well, I think I went to America as PEP's MAGA correspondent, and I think I came back completely unchanged. For those listening, I'm currently I got a little bit of slack for my attempt at dressing full MAGA when I returned, and I realized that was because I tried something different.
Yeah,
I should have just whacked on a suit and a red hat and a tacky tie.
Which is what he wears all the time.
Which is what I'm wearing now, and I'm now indistinguishable from Pete Hegseth. Except for one fact.
What's that?
I know how to do a pull-up.
Hey! For those who are listening, you should actually go and just watch the YouTube video of that, because that is actually my favourite footage of 2025.
It is beautiful, beautiful footage.
Stunning footage.
Makes you feel a bit better about yourself. No, Chaz only wants me to do the Lackey in the USA segment because it's good for my tax. I can claim it all on tax.
Yes.
That's your official stance. So I'm not going to do like a full. I just went on a Florida road trip with some friends, and I went to New York as well, which was lovely.
Did you get through security okay?
I will get to that.
Oh, okay. That's part of the story.
That's part of the story.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not going to tell travel tips because that's not what this podcast is. Pep away, though, if we were a travel show. I do have 2 points of reflection. One is about before I went on the trip.
Yep.
And one is a takeaway that I learned while I was at the trip and when I got back.
Okay.
So, Chaz, the first thing I have to say about before I went on the trip is, could you tell that I was genuinely worried about making it into the country?
Oh, yeah. No, you were nervous.
I was very nervous.
Like, he was swaying bullets. So every time we referred to it in a really self-referential way, he did not like that at all.
That was not a joke. On my behalf, it may have been just like overestimation of the standards and anxiety, but because there were all those horror stories at the start of the year about people who had liked JD Vance memes or written about Israel and Gaza or made jokes about Charlie Kirk, I felt that because of what happens on PEP and other outlets that I work for or have worked for, that I had reason to be concerned that they would ask me questions. And did they? Well, I tried to make sure that there was nothing that you could trace back to me,
Yes.
so that I wouldn't get asked anything. Before I went over, I deleted anything from my phone that was anti-Trump. I scrapped my online presence. I actually went back and deleted my name from websites that had my name on them, so that when you Googled me, nothing came up.
Mm-hmm.
I deleted LinkedIn. I deleted podcast episodes that I'd been on, not from PEP, and I even made sure that I wasn't interacting with memes that I thought the Trump administration might not like. I was that anal about what I was viewing and doing before going on this trip. Plus, on my application, I called myself an audio engineer instead of a producer or a writer, because I really didn't want to get asked any questions by customs.
It's quite ironic. Someone who works on the PEP podcast called himself an audio engineer. But anyway, go on. Yes,
it's good audio. They love it now.
These days, it's a lot better. Yeah.
And yet, despite all of that, when I got to customs, I still got asked, audio engineer for the ABC, what do you work on? I said, well, just the odd couple of podcasts.
Yeah.
And the guy says, what's the name of the podcast? And I answer.
You told him.
I answer, and I figure that you've got to be honest, because we're about to go through a lot of content today about people who are not honest.
Yes.
So I figured honesty's good, and I just went, well, it's actually about American politics. It's called PEP. And I watched as the customs officer on his little desktop opened YouTube.
He got peppy.
And then he got peppy. And I hope that it was because he wanted to listen. But I watched, and I was sort of pooed myself a little bit as I watched him go through all of the different thumbnails with Trump on Epstein's Island and Elon Musk doing a Roman salute. And I'm just sitting there just crapping myself, thinking, this is it. I'm not going to be allowed in. Now, I was allowed in. I did still get to go on my holiday, and all of the self-censorship that I did didn't matter. But I do think that it's fascinating that I still felt it was necessary to do all of that. And people who know that I was going on this trip still felt it was necessary to give me advice, to tell me to bring a burner phone. I think 12 months ago, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. When you were standing there, was it like for 5 hours?
I was only getting questioned for 5 minutes, but oh boy, did I feel like I could have watched the PEP in that time.
I'm glad you got through.
As for after the trip, and I'll preface this by saying this is anecdotal evidence, and I'm a Lackey, so take it with a grain of salt. But my major takeaway is America is really expensive.
So, yeah, you have been telling me this, but you mean more expensive than Australia?
I mean more expensive than Australia.
Because we'll talk about this, about American groceries versus Australian groceries. You're saying they're more expensive in America.
I found that, and I was eating out a lot of the time, and I'm not including, theme park food in any of this. But when it came to actually just buying stuff that would get me through the week, I felt like the number was higher than what I would have expected it to be in America. I felt like particularly fast food, as an example, which I feel like is supposed to be cheap, and especially supposed to be cheaper in America, the land of
was when I was there.
Freedom fries. Yeah. I was still paying about $15 USD for a meal, chips, drink, and a burger, which adds up to about 23 Australian.
$15 American for just a meal.
That's what I was paying, sort of across and I then started eating a lot less for that.
Wow.
Also, portion sizes weren't particularly massive for that.
Is this just New York we're talking here?
No, this is not. This is the Florida section, Florida Keys as well. I feel like I was paying the same dollar price that you would pay in Australia.
And then there's a conversion.
And then there was a conversion rate on top of that, which I also, the dollar's bad right now. I'm not going to include that. Now, again, I don't know. These numbers are all just how I sort of was viewing things as a tourist. But I definitely expected it to be cheaper. And the reason I bring up the fact that it's so expensive is because if I was an average US voter and I was not massively paying attention to the campaign last year, I probably would have voted for anyone who would have promised that life was going to be cheaper on day one.
So you learned something.
So I learned something.
Wow, I'm really shocked by that. Because my memory of America when I was there in 2006, 2009, like that kind of period was so much cheaper than Australia.
Do you recall sort of how much you were paying for an odd meal?
I remember, for instance, like Wendy's had this whole dollar menu thing happening, and there was nothing like that. Like, I don't mean like a cheeseburger, like in the McDonald's dollar menu in Australia. I mean like sizable stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was just, it was. In American dollars, of course, there's the conversion. But in American dollars, everything was half the Australian price.
Yeah, I that's not what I experienced while I was over there. Much to my disappointment, my wallet was taking the hit, and I mean that's substantial considering the hundreds of thousands of dollars I profit on every year for pet merch.
Of course, yes.
But if even I'm feeling it. That's a joke.
Good. Yeah, definitely a joke. Made you watch.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for sharing, Lucky. If
you have any questions, ask away in all of the places we told you to ask earlier at the start of the year.
Indeed.
Let's get into actual PEP.
Yeah.
Hey?
Now it's the moment you've all been waiting for. It is Big JB, John Barron. Let's fire up that tape recorder because we recorded this about 6 days ago. See you after the white flash. Welcome to the other side of the white flash. We are in the John Barron bracket. What do you reckon, John? First time in the studio.
I love what you've done with the place. It's a little bit like that Julia Zamiro show where they take somebody back to their childhood home and they look around and they go, gee, it was a shithole, wasn't it? And it's so much smaller than I remembered. So you've taken some of the bits of the old Oval Office set and they're all in here.
They are. The thing I love best about this is I know you're just doing a bit, but the thing I love best about this is that you haven't noticed all this, given that it is literally 1 metre away from your desk.
Yeah, that's true, but I never come to work these days, so it is all unfamiliar.
John, thank you.
You should put the painting I did of you in here. Why isn't that in here?
Yeah, it's a good painting. This is about myth busting, John. We're telling the truth here. You didn't exactly draw that picture, did you?
Yeah.
This is setting an ominous trend for this particular segment that John is lying from the first minute.
What is your memory of it?
My memory is that we had an art person do it.
No,
it was really you?
It was really me.
Oh my God. Well, maybe I'm going to learn something in this segment.
Well, I mean, it's not the best caricature, but before I went into journalism, I wanted to be a political cartoonist. All through university, I was doing caricatures of Sir Robert Menzies in those days. But well, yeah, no, that was
seriously.
Yeah.
Who was your favourite cartoonist at the time? You like a Zanetti guy or? I
particularly liked I liked the nudity in Larry Pickering, of course, and later the extreme right wing politics. I thought that was also particularly good.
So should I be relieved you didn't draw my penis as part of that picture?
Oh, that's not your head. Look, I think in those days I liked Michael Leunig. I liked Bill Leake. Bill Leake before he
Also,
well,
like Larry Pickering,
he fell out of a tree, didn't he? Bill Leake.
I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah. He changed. He changed. Yeah,
that could have been you. Had you become a cartoonist?
Haven't fallen out of a tree yet. Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, that's a true story.
Oh wow! So that caricature should be a lot better then.
I was doing it in a deliberately naive style with thick paintbrushes to make it look like it was done by a 5-year-old.
Okay, there you go. We're all learning stuff. Hopefully, I'll see you one day on QandA if that show even exists anymore. I've no idea.
I think they've replaced him with about 10 other portrait artists in that show. It's kind of a rip-off, isn't it?
I can feel
a new painting show.
I can feel a Barron vehicle coming. I can sniff it out.
Yeah. Have you looked at the picture?
Now, John, I put out the call for questions for you. I mean, we can just rabbit on for a while. People listen to us forever.
That's what podcasts are for, isn't it?
That is pretty much it. But yeah, we should get some of these questions out. Now, I got you to select the ones that you were least offended by, and they were all the ones that were negative about me, which is nice. So they'll be coming. But first of all, there was one which you wouldn't have known about because we got, I don't know if it was organised, but we got like a whole bunch of questions after you went through them.
Yes.
they were basically the same question, which is Chaz very short? We could have just said yes. But I realised it was based on our titles.
Yes.
Because the astronaut thing, you're like twice my height in the titles. And we should say we were measured up for those titles.
I don't think that's to scale, is it? I don't know.
I don't think it's to scale. I'm not that short. Yeah. But when we share, I mean, I'm definitely a lot shorter than you, but I'm not half your height. I'm not.
Yeah.
What
are you in old money?
Person. In old money, I'm 5'9", or just under 5'8.5".
All right, I'm somewhere between 6'1" and 6'2".
That's what I guessed. I answered it for someone. I said I think he'd probably be at 185. So that's
something like that.
Why don't we just show people just to
Sure.
prove? Hang on, let me just get up here.
Yep.
How lucky can we get a wide shot? Here we go.
There we go.
See?
I'm like Dickie Nee with this hat on.
There we are.
Real demonstration.
There we are. Now, I'm not wearing shoes, and he is, but
and like
you get the
with
idea.
heels.
Yeah.
I get little boosters in Cuban heels. Yeah.
Next thing I'll be asking who wins arm wrestles, but that will do for now.
And most of the questions, which I think I ultimately didn't bother to include in the ones that we were going to discuss, they're asking me about you.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of asking about
like,
that.
what is the worst thing about working with Chaz?
You put that in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you did. You did. It's almost like you want to answer that.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
okay. Hey, I've got the worst thing about John Barron there. I'm
That
ready to go.
That wasn't one of them.
No, but I'll just throw it in.
I see how it's going to be.
So, yeah, just be aware that I'm going to be answering these questions after you answer them as well.
You're going to reverse them all.
So, yeah, just watch out. We'll start with Sam. John, do you get burnout from American issues? How is your balance between it and Australia? Chaz is notorious for not knowing what's happening in Australia.
Yes. Well, so up until 3 years ago, part of my job was Planet America, and the other part of my job was the drum. Remember the drum? No, nobody does. So the late and lamented drum program, which meant I was having to try and stay on top of Australian politics and American politics all at the one time, and it did occur to me at that stage that it's the same part of the brain. I'm not sure which part of the brain, and I'm not sure if it's a particularly well functioning part of the brain. But they were sort of competing in my mind, and I did in those days. I'd find it difficult to be as interested in Australian politics. And it's always been the case that I've always found American politics a lot more interesting. The stakes are higher, the characters are bigger, and Australian politics was just a bit like, whatever. Yeah, there are some issues, obviously, that come along and you kind of think that that's really important, that's really interesting, whatever. But in those days I did struggle a little bit. But these days, Planet America is, and American politics is our full-time occupation. And so, it's as for burnout, there is a particular sort of frenetic pace to the Trump era that makes it a constant process of trying to distill what is important from what is urgent and what is genuinely interesting as opposed to just briefly alarming. So it's a challenge. But I also kind of, for people covering American politics, this is, in our parents' and grandparents' generation, this is like covering Watergate. Except it's been going for 10 years now. Yes. I mean, this is
like covering the hotel Watergate.
Exactly. So it's challenging, but it is also it's the time to be. I mean, we're lucky that both Chaz and I were interested in American politics at a time when not that many people were interested in American politics, but now the world is interested in American politics because it is at such an unusual place because we're seeing somebody in that job of president of the United States who is tearing up so many rules and conventions in a way that George W. Bush never did, Ronald Reagan never did, Bill Clinton never did. But you can also see the kind of little precursors in each of those administrations to what's led to Trump. He hasn't come out of a clear blue sky. So it's it's a good gig.
Firstly, I just add that at least the people on YouTube who are asking questions will know that you were a host of the drum because they'll be reminded of that because I used that creepy photo of you behind Julia Baird as the photo for the post where I was asking for questions.
The creepy photo. Oh, is that the one we were doing the Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski?
No,
Singer.
not that one. That's it. I should have used that actually. John was actually lying on the counter, sexy style.
Why does it look creepy?
Yeah. I think Julie's doing a bit of work there to creep it up as much as possible.
Yeah, very possibly. No, that was all part of the photo shoot where we were sending up Joe and Mika. I can't even remember the. Lachy will find the original, won't you? He'll find the original.
I do love that photo.
Yeah.
Look, I just like I said, just on the same, me answering the same question. I'm not going to. This is about John more than me, but I just do want to add that I totally get burnt out from American politics. I've got to say, and if I go pretty hard, as you all know, but if I don't have that holiday at the end of the year, like we're just about to have a holiday, and I've just been hankering from it, and honestly, I don't read a damn thing during those holidays. I don't want to know about it. I'm just watching movies or going to the gym or whatever. Yeah. And I honestly think, I'll tell you what you think about this, John. I don't think we've ever talked about this before, off or on air, but I think people who just submerge themselves in American politics, I'm referring to Americans here, not Australians, a lot of them just go crazy. Like there are people who at one point in time were very sensible people, and they just flip out. And I'll name names. Glenn Greenwald is someone who I used to be a massive fan of. He is totally a different person to what he was 10 years ago. Matt Taibbi has definitely changed. Like I think, and I think that it's possible to get punch drunk on American politics because it's so aggressive, and people are attacking each other all the time. And I think you just get punched so often, metaphorically, and especially with the culture war. If you're participating in the culture war, a lot of it doesn't matter, but the punches still feel real. And I think, and by the way, neither John nor I are big culture warriors, but some people in American politics are. And I think those people do get a bit punch drunk. I'll give you another example of someone who I think was ruined by the to and fro of American politics was Fauci. I reckon when Fauci started, he started in the 1800s, but I mean, when Fauci started in the COVID era, he was a very different person to when he retired. By the time he retired, he was just in this permanent defensive crouch because he'd been attacked so many times that he just couldn't answer a question without coming off as bitter and angry and superly overly defensive. He just wasn't serving his role at all at that point in time. And I think because he just copped too many punches. And I think that does happen with American politics, that if you submerge yourself too much, especially in social media, and you don't take any breaks, I think it takes a piece out of you.
Yeah, interesting theory. I would suggest that maybe that's not unique to American politics, but that can be the thing that pushes people over. But I think what you're describing there is something that happens to a lot of people who start off as, you see it with whistleblowers, people that are sort of truth to power tellers, people who are just slightly left of centre in terms of their thinking, not their ideology, and they just come at things slightly differently and they call it out. And they have the courage of those convictions. Those people, and you see them in the media as well at different times, where somebody starts off and you think, they've got a refreshing take, and then after a few years you go, oh no, they've actually gone a bit mad. And I've seen it happen to enough people with nothing to do with politics, where they've just kind of gradually sort of inched further and further away from the mainstream and reality and being able to even function and interact with people and so on. So, look, it could be something about American politics drives you mad. And I think it's healthy to make sure that, you don't just fixate and focus on the one thing or see every outrageous or frightening or confronting thing as being the possible end of the world because, at the end of the day, we'll probably be okay. I mean, on the one hand, we'll probably be okay. On the other hand, we're all going to die.
That's the other hand.
So somewhere between those two possibilities, we just kind of muddle through. But things are never as good or as bad as you fear.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
Rudolph asks, if John and Chaz had to swap outfits for an episode, John wishes this every episode. The number of times he makes little comments about it. Why didn't I pick the T-shirt guy?
Yeah.
If John and Chaz had to swap outfits for an episode, what political campaign T-shirt would John choose? And also, Chaz, feel like you may have answered this before, but do you find people treat you less seriously when it comes to a political opinion because of your chase of history and how you casually present yourself in your attire? John.
The first part of the question, what T-shirt, if we did swap, what T-shirt would I wear? As a piece of graphic design, I think my favourite presidential political T-shirt is the 1984 Reagan-Bush re-election. It's red, white and blue, dark blue. You've got one of them.
I do have one of them.
And I remember where I grew up, there was one of those little Citroen 5C cars, those cute little Citroens. It had one of those stickers on the back window. And it always struck me, and that was when Reagan was literally president, it always struck me as just an elegant, simple piece of design. And Obama in 2008, with that sort of, it was described as the Easter egg basket, that was good. But I'd say the Reagan-Bush 84 is probably visually the best. In terms of all the sort of presidential candidates that I've had any interactions with, I'd say I'm still fondest of Senator George McGovern, the Democratic nominee from 1972.
You named your dog after him.
I did, yeah. Neither George the dog or George the McGovern are with us anymore, sadly. But so George McGovern, when it comes to, because I've got not as many T-shirts as you have, but I've got the T-shirts and the badges and the bumper stickers and the yard signs and the rally signs and everything else from many trips covering American elections. And the McGovern ones from '72 are probably my favourite. So they're somewhere between those two.
Do you have a favourite president?
A favourite president?
You don't have to. But
in our lifetime, I think we share this. George H.W. Bush.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm really always been fascinated by Richard Nixon, who showed some of the best and the worst of anyone to hold that office. But yeah, I'd say George H.W. Bush probably the best person to be president and conducted himself, particularly the way that he handled the fall of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the Soviet Union. He handled those things in an extremely artful and diplomatic fashion. And I think he was the right person to be doing that. He wasn't triumphal. He wasn't spiking the football. He was considered. He was measured. And he always impressed me. But, a lot of people look good in retrospect because, the flip side of that is, Donald Trump is that sort of country club Republican rule book has been torn to shreds.
Yes.
It's like leave that in the locker room, pal.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I'm also a bit partial to Eisenhower and Cal Coolidge as well. But but Bush, they are three Republicans. I am, probably. If I'd existed 40 years ago or 50 years ago, I would have been a Republican.
Yeah.
Not today.
That's where moderation and kind of sensible intellectual approach to policy making rather than ideological approaches is ultimately kind of. But also, we kind of have the luxury of viewing this from something of a distance.
Yeah.
So we can kind of sort of say, well, I don't culturally or socially identify as this or that, but I like the style of that person, or I liked some of the ideas that they had.
Yeah, and to answer the question you asked of me, when we first started, I absolutely got treated like a moron by some people, but I think
only sometimes,
and usually when I deserved it, usually when I said something moronic. No, look, I've spent 13 years now being my nerdy self on TV. I think people have gotten the message by now.
Even the ABC has.
Yeah,
the number of times I now get messages from big wigs in the ABC. Who for the first time are now, saying, in the early days, I'd get messages from them sort of saying, just make sure you keep Chaz. And now,
didn't know about those messages.
Yeah. I'll show them to you.
Yeah, okay.
I've got them on T-shirts. But now I get people that actually look at the the way that you analyse things as being the way that other journalists should be doing that. So there's been progress.
Wow,
you've won them over.
That is a concern. But I was also going to say, I to be honest, I've kind of spent pretty much my entire life with people having question marks about me because it's just my personality. I'm a puppy dog. I don't like to carry on with airs. And so people tend to think of me as a fun but not very bright person. And that's cool. That's cool. That's all right. Low expectations. That's a gift. They're easy to meet. So
that's interesting. I don't know that. Well, I don't know. I don't know how people see you. But,
yeah. No, obviously I don't because I'm me. But anyway, just answering the question.
Sure.
Bryce asks, would love to know whether this year has been the most challenging year to cover in Plain America's history from an impartiality perspective. There have been a few times throughout the season where John's usual calm demeanour appears to have been challenged by what is transpiring in the White House. I've noticed that once or twice. What are your thoughts?
I don't seek impartiality. Impartiality when I seek objectivity. When objectively we have the most transgressive individual to hold the presidency of the United States, it would be journalistic malpractice to not point that out. Doesn't mean that we have to be careful not to be just only focusing on the bad things that he does, the weird things that he does, the outrageous, outlandish things that he does. And there are times when he does things perfectly normal and he's capable of saying a perfectly appropriate thing. But more often than not, Trump is Trump. And so even when he is doing what presidents do, which is acknowledging that the tragedy has happened, people are in need, etc., he can't help himself but deciding, if there's a hurricane, well, he's blaming these, the state officials if they're Democrats, or he's blaming the years of wasteful spending, or he's always blaming somebody. And if there's a murder, then it's, is that a person of colour? Is that a migrant? Is it, a plane crashes? It's like the air traffic controller was a woman. I mean, he's just, his reflex is to always be scapegoating in a way that is profoundly corrosive and divisive. And American presidents, my favourite American presidents, are the ones who seek to be the uniter-in-chief, the consoler-in-chief, not the divider-in-chief.
And the buck stops here.
Right.
Yeah.
Take that responsibility. Admit when you're wrong. There's so many things where, it's no great newsflash that Trump isn't like that, and it's fascinating to watch him never be like that. And because the question, okay, well, if there are times when he can be quite effective, and every time he launches a new peace initiative, it's like, well, could this be just crazy enough to work? He's basically, and to be fair, he ultimately did get a ceasefire of sorts in Gaza. It took a long time to get it. He didn't engage with the details. He claims a lot more credit than he deserves. But at the end of the day, the American president, whoever it is the important underwriter of the ending of this conflict. So that was an achievement of his. The Abraham Accords in his first term were, even though a lot of career diplomats sniffed at that and said, it's a real estate deal, it's not really diplomacy, to an extent it moved the normalisation of relations between Israel and some of its neighbours further faster because it didn't get bogged down in the details. And so there are times when Trump is really interesting diplomatically and interesting when he's trying to get Congress to do things, a little bit like when he's trying to get the world community to do things. He will just push and he will cajole. He doesn't, again, get bogged down in the detail of policy. It's simply he wants the win or he wants to get this done. So do a deal with them. And sometimes Trump, the deal maker, if that deal is not just I make a ridiculous ambit claim and then I kind of meet you at a high point and you feel ripped off and I get what I want. But if he actually reaches a compromise to get things done, and he's going to be faced with a challenge like that around healthcare subsidies soon, then that can be quite constructive. But more often than not, he's like a child with a Rubik's Cube who tries a few different ways and then just throws it on the ground and says, "Oh, it was broken." There's nothing you can do. Washington's broken, So, yeah, when it comes to Trump, I don't think you can pretend. John Mulaney, the comedian, has this great routine about the horse in the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
You should. If you haven't seen it, just find it on YouTube, because I think we have to be very careful that we don't fall into that trap of simply just reporting on what the horse in the hospital did today. But we do need to constantly remind ourselves and others that there is a horse in the hospital.
We've got a sting for that, John.
This is not normal.
That's kind of what you're talking about, isn't it?
This podcast has come ahead in leaps and bounds in the last year. You didn't have stings like that a year ago.
No, we
That's
didn't.
fantastic.
Thank you, Peppers. Yeah, no, this is actually, forgive me on this one, I'm going to rabbit on a little bit on this. So this is the one question I've actually got a bit to say about. Because honestly, I'll be straightforward here. This has been my toughest year by a mile for impartiality. By a mile. I had no problems in Trump's first term, but this year has been bad for a few reasons. And some of them have nothing to do with Trump at all. One, I happen to care a lot about America. I know you do as well. But I really do love America. That's why I'm in this job. And I think there is genuine, serious permanent damage happening right now. Like, that's not usually the case. Usually you go, okay, something's happening which I don't like or which I think could be better. Then someone else will come and they'll reverse it. Or like, oh yeah, nothing's perfect. You go, like, there's twos and fro's in politics. Yeah, get over it. It's fine. But I actually think right now there is real hard to reverse serious damage happening. And what I'm referring to there, particularly, I'm referring to the immigration crackdowns and the politicization of the Department of Justice and the Homeland Security Department. I think all three of them are fundamental to what America is. And they're not going to be reversed rapidly. And the most likely instinct for a lot of Democrats is going to be partisanship on the other side. And they're already locked in so many negative cycles. But I think those negative cycles are going to be particularly bad. I don't know how you fix it. And I think it's going to take more than 4 years, that's for sure. It's going to take consecutive administrations from both sides to fix this. And I don't know that either side is willing to do it, let alone both of them. But and that makes me really sad. And I'll be talking about something and trying to stay chipper. Sometimes it pisses people off when I'm happy on air, when I'm talking about horrible things. But I try and keep the energy up. But I'm telling you, inside, I'm just dying. I'm just going, this is awful. Ideological differences, I don't care about that. I don't care about that at all. We all have our own opinions. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. But sometimes it feels to me like there's trolling going on or mindless vandalism of a great country. And that gets me down when there's just no point. It's just mindless negativity. And that actually makes me quite angry because I think America is special. It took a long time to build it up. And that kind of stuff doesn't come around very often, and it's been just defaced in front of our eyes. And that's been hard for me, I've got to say. And that's not every day, but just that didn't used to occur to me at all. At all. I'm talking even in the first term of Trump here. It didn't occur to me at all. Whereas now that's I've been thinking like that in double figures this year, times this year. That's the first thing. Second thing, it felt to me that Trump was in his first term was in the bounds of normality. I'm not saying I agreed with him, but I'm not really a Democrat or a Republican. There are bits I like and bits I hate from both. I'm just used to that. And it felt to me that the first Trump term was like that. There were bits I liked, but bits I didn't like from day to day, whatever. But this term is different. It's culturally reactionary, while at the same time economically very nationalist, at times almost socialist. So it's kind of like my polar opposite, which I haven't experienced before. Because I'm a personally kind of moderate libertarian, and everything I believe in is that he believes in the direct opposite. At least this year, didn't in this first term. Especially since the things I care most about are civil liberties and freedom. And they're the things he cares least about. He just trods on them all the time, and they're so precious. So I'm finding that challenging as well, because I'm always trying to find positives, as you know. I'm always going, okay, where's the positive? Where's the positive? And sometimes it's really hard to do. I'm not going to lie. If there's no positive, I'm not going to pretend there is. I just think it's our job to find it if it's there. It's often not there, and I'm finding that hard. And also, this is a subtle one, but an important one. Let me explain how I see our job to people. I don't know. I've never talked to you about this, John. I'll be interested in your views on this.
Finally, after 14 years, I'm getting a job description.
Yes,
This is excellent.
The way I say it, like, a lot of people think of politics as you got the left and you got the right, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. I don't think like that at all. The way I think is that there is, when you got two intelligent, good faith political opponents, the truth is not between them. They're usually both right, in my view. And what the difference is they have different perspectives, different tastes, different priorities, different things they're focusing on. And what the person on the right is focusing on, they're correct about their interpretation. And the person on the left, what they're focusing on, they're correct about their interpretation, but they just care about different things. And so I see my job is to translate to the viewers what both sides' expectations, presumptions, focuses, and priorities are, so you at home can understand both of them and see that they both kind of make sense, and you can make up your own mind what your priorities and your focus points are, and then you'll come up with an opinion that makes sense to you. Like, if I do my job right, you won't think what I think. You'll think what you think, but in a smarter way than you would have before the show. That's what I see our job as. You know, like, if you're interested in a topic, then that's a valuable service. And the more reading we do, the more effectively we can do that, which is why I read like a nut. Right? So anyway, so that's how I see the job, right? And what I've really struggled with this year, and only this year, is so often in the Trump administration, and it's not all the time, but just so often, there is no perspective. It's a dominance game. It's treating it like a sport. It's cheerleading. There's random positions being picked for random reasons that don't make sense, and then everyone just falls into line. Not just the Trump people, but the anti-Trump people. They all fall into line. And they seem to pick just random positions for reasons that don't make sense. Like, I've said this a few times, the ballroom story I found ridiculous, because I just thought I could so see, this had nothing to do with ideology. I could so see the two sides being on opposite sides of the coin in a different circumstance. There's nothing ideological about this at all. It's just Trump made a choice, and his people just decided it was the only choice and the only sensible choice. And the people who were against him just decided it was the worst choice, because that's what they're supposed to do. And when people are thinking like that, I've got no role to play. There's no perspective to shed. It's just sport. It's just like, and I'm not good at communicating sport commentary. That's not my strength, you know. Like, so I find that tough, that environment. I find myself useless and obsolete on those kinds of stories, other than just fact checking stuff that's bullshit. Which you can.
I mean, I, as you know from our coverage, I found the ballroom story interesting because of the fact that Trump just ran right over the top of convention.
Yeah.
Didn't seek any kind of process for getting the design approved, getting, the architectural historians happy with this, to have people to say this is proportionate to the building, this would be useful, and so on. The fact that he got high wealth mates to pay for it, so that he didn't even have to get the money from Congress, so there was not even congressional oversight, which just meant he gets to build the ballroom that he wants to do, and he demolished not a particularly lovely part of the White House, but a part of the White House. Yeah. After digging up the Rose Garden to put down a patio with a bunch of golf club umbrellas and drinks waiters, and now he's according to reports this week, there are the architects that were working on the ballroom are saying, Mr. President, this is too big. This is going to look terrible. And he's going, no, it's got to be bigger. It's got to be bigger. And you look at the before and after shots of the Oval Office, the amount of gold crap that he's stuck to the walls, and it it is beyond satire
Yeah.
what the man is doing to that poor building. Now, in the look, I'm much more concerned about one undocumented migrant being deported illegally or sent back into harm's way in a country that they're a refugee from. I'm much more concerned about how they are going rather than a bunch of plaster and asbestos that got knocked up in the 1940s by FDR. But I think it does operate on that profoundly telling and symbolic metaphorical level as to what he's doing, because Trump is effectively doing to the East Wing of the White House what he is doing to the law generally. And the fact that while he's doing all of this, he's profiteering off the presidency in an astonishing way.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that most of the obviously legal jeopardy that he was facing is gone now, partly because of the statute of limitations, partly because of the Supreme Court. But just wait. If Democrats get a majority in the House next year, they're going to start digging into this crypto stuff. They're going to be digging into all of this foreign money that has been going into the various Trump pockets, which, given the amount that he was going on about Hunter Biden and Jim Biden and Joe Biden and everything else, you just think, it's extraordinary that he is making billions of dollars while he is president of the United States. So yeah, absolutely, I think it's it has to be our job to, when we find these things to be outrageous, we should say so. Now, people don't have to agree with us. They don't have to watch the show.
Yes.
They don't. Plenty of people don't. But fortunately, a lot of people do, and and more people watch in the Trump era, whether that's despite us or because of him or whatever it might be. But it is important. You don't really know a system. You don't even know a country until you see it at its worst. And we're seeing it now.
Yeah, just for the record, I 100% agree that the financials being the biggest part of that story. As you know, on the show, that's what I focused on like a laser, because I thought I don't give a toss about the look of the East Wing, but the financials, that's an issue that ties into bigger questions, and so I totally agree with you on that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have reported on it either. Of course, it's a big story. You report on big stories because, if for no other reason, because your audience is interested in your views on big stories.
Yeah.
And when they're tuning in to see it. And let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not be up ourselves. We're there for our audience. If our audience wants us to talk about something, we should talk about it. It's not our job to lecture them and go, that's not real news. If they think a tweet is real news, then we talk about the tweet. Yeah. We're providing a service. So I'm definitely not getting up myself on that. But just what I'm saying is there's just more of that kind of stuff. And this year there's more of it than ever. And I'm not sorry. Look, Trump's part of it, but he's not the only thing that's part of it. I suspect there'll be more of that in future presidencies as well. Yeah. But also, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I've got a few examples here for you, John, and for the Peppers. This tweet went viral a few days ago. This is, by the way, what I'm trying to illustrate is why at times I feel useless. Okay, this tweet here. For those who are listening rather than watching, what we have here is a tweet saying, "Ice in Charlotte. The guy in the headlock is a restaurant worker. Barbarians." And what we're seeing is two, maybe ICE officers, maybe customs officers, you can never tell the difference, arresting a chef. And they're doing it quite aggressively. He doesn't appear to be a threat. They've got him like a headlock and both hands of his hands are being grasped. It seems needlessly aggressive. We've seen a lot of these photos over the time, right? Mm-hmm. Now, that photo went super viral. And I could get to the bottom of why they were arresting him. I could explain to the left why they had their reasons, or I could explain to the right why their action was unnecessary and why they should care about the illegal immigrants' civil liberties. I could explain all that. But no one cares about any of those things. That's not why this photo went viral. The reason why this photo went viral was because of the knife he's carrying. Have another look. Okay, so if we can just zoom into his hand there, you can see that he's not carrying a knife, he's carrying a phone, right? Mm-hmm. Pretty clearly. But that's not the hand. Lachy, can you zoom into the other hand? There we go. So what do you reckon, John?
Well, it just looks like a clenched fist.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To me, that there's a black bit coming out from the hand, which looks like the inside of the guy's
sleeve of
the
guy.
guy's
Sure.
sleeve. That's what it looks like to me, right? There are thousands. If you go into that tweet, that exact tweet, and look at the comments, there are literally thousands of people talking about the knife that he is holding.
Right.
And it's like the political version of gold dress or blue dress.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why it's viral. Some people even drew up structural diagrams. So, Lachy, can you go to the next slide here, the structural diagram? There we go. Look at this. Showing where the knife is and the blades and the edges and it's like they're just like it's just clearly not the case that is a knife. But it's not one or two people, John. It's a lot of people who think that is a knife, and that's their eyes, right?
Yeah. Well, no, it's their brains.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Basically, people are observing the world through their political bias. And yeah, I know people have always been like this, but I think it's so much more now than it used to be. And I can't do anything for those people, John. I can't. All we can do, we can't inform them, we can't reach them. We can do one of two things. We can either reinforce their bias if we agree with them, or we can prove that we are part of the enemy if we disagree with them. They're the only two things we can do. There are two choices. And honestly, that's not a game I'm interested in. I'd prefer just have some other job.
Yeah.
And that's happening more and more.
Yeah, I mean, one approach to something like that is to look at, the two different interpretations of that. Our job can be to try and find out, well, actually, was he carrying a knife or not? It was a reasonable concern for people to say, he's in a commercial kitchen. There are knives in that kitchen. That could explain why.
Some people said that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that could explain why and was, has that particular arrest been reviewed by the superiors of those officers? Did they use undue force or not? Was it just because sometimes, in a split second, something can look particularly brutal and violent, and it could just be they were just getting his arm behind him and then it was stopped and he was fine on his feet and he was fine. Or it could have been that he was beaten black and blue. So the context of that really matters. But people diagnosing the entire narrative around do I see a knife or not, when the truth is out there, there will be reports when that guy goes into custody. They have to fill out a report to say, was he carrying a weapon? Did he resist? Are there criminal charges to be laid against this person? Did he try and stab one of these officers? All of those things can be investigated, but obviously it's just if you're sitting at home on social media, you're just like, oh, clearly it's a knife.
But what I'm pointing to you is that the people who see a knife there, they're not going to believe those reports. They're not going to. When you say to them,
some will.
When you say
surely,
nah. If someone is looking at that photo we just saw and they see a knife, they are interpreting everything through.
But if Immigration and Customs Enforcement puts out a statement saying that the officers have been debriefed after this arrest, the person has been detained, contrary to some public commentary or reports, he was not armed at the time. They can try and at least put the information out there. The information is there.
They're going to say San Diego, liberals, city, California, liars. That's what they'll do.
Just because people don't believe the facts when they're presented to them doesn't mean you shouldn't present them with the facts.
Yeah.
At least give them the facts, and a certain proportion will be sensible. A certain proportion, and those on social media probably won't be sensible. Yeah. But at least if there is credible information out there that you can present to them, as well as a photo where they're going, oh, it looks like a knife to me, then I think that, and that can be the job of not necessarily us, but journalism generally is about saying, well, we can get the Public Affairs Office of the San Diego ICE to, our question is this, can you confirm? Can you not confirm? Because there will be a legal document that has a record of whether he was armed or not.
Look, I'm not going on strike here. Obviously, if this was a story we're going to cover, I'd cover it all the ways that you're talking about, right? Like, and all because I'm not happy about something doesn't mean I'm just going to throw a tantrum.
Sure.
But I'm just saying that increasingly, and this is the simplest version of what I'm talking about because it's easy to look at. You go, there we go, here we go, here's an image straight away. But there are less simple versions. There are versions where no matter what you say, no matter what you report, no matter what context you put it in, some people are going to interpret that crime is always going up.
Yeah, sure.
It doesn't matter what you say.
Yep.
Crime, one of the the sun rises in the east and crime is always going up. That's not something that's in front of your face. That's that there's always ambiguities there, and there's always shades that you can cling on to if you want to. And once again, it wasn't invented yesterday. I'll give you another example of something that's just getting worse. This is a clip, so this is my last show and tell. Vivek Ramaswamy, this is also from this week, because I was perfect for this question. He seemed to suggest that to save money on childcare, schools should be in session all year round until 4 p.m. every day. Then there's no childcare necessary because the kids are in childcare while you're working. Now, to be honest, I don't mind that idea. I think, they have to be.
Well, if it means we can all knock off at 3:30 to go and pick up the kids at 4, that's fantastic. Thanks, Vivek.
I'm not saying that, that you make school much longer for the kids. What I'm saying is you put other things into school. So if you had school go till 3 p.m. like usual, but then they have homework time at school.
Sure.
Or they have compulsory sport /reading /theatre or something, whatever, like for an hour and a half, the compulsory activities after school, whatever. So the parents don't have to pick them up, but what's happening is you're adding value to the school experience and taking some of the pressure off the families. I think that could be potentially good. Whatever reason, a lot of people think it's a really stupid idea, okay? Fine, be like that. But my point is, that's a setup for Tim Pool to say this.
Make parenting more affordable by making school year-round and going till 4 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock so you don't have to pay for childcare.
Okay. It's a short clip of Vivek Ramaswamy, a politician, a man who's running for office, saying to make school year-round from 3 to 4, and it's AI. The original audio has been replaced with fabricated audio falsely attributing statements about 4 p.m. to Vivek Ramaswamy. Here's the unaltered original video, if we can play it.
That bring down costs now, not in the distant future, but in the present. Bring down those electric bills by requiring AI data centers to pay for their own energy. Bring down housing costs by ending land use restrictions that stop new home construction. And you know what? Slash property taxes while we're at it. And let's make healthcare affordable by topping up health savings accounts. More on that soon. That's how we win this thing. Let's go get it done. Let's all.
Nowhere does he say this, but here's the thing. You have Dr. Amy Acton, doctor, advocate, and problem solver, running for governor to fight for Ohioans. And she just posted a false video of Vivek Ramaswamy advocating for something he never said. This should be, she should have liability on this. I believe that he should be able to sue her for publishing this. This is defamation. And you can argue that, well, she didn't know actual mouse. If we're playing this game, we are done.
Okay, so he did say it. What happened was, as soon as he got backlash, he took that video down and replaced it with an edited version without that claim anymore. And it's hard to find online now because the people didn't capture it originally, except for Amy Acton. A whole bunch of people to this day, even though Community Notes on Twitter said, no, the video was real. To this day, a whole bunch of people think it was AI. Now, politicians will notice that. And they'll just start taking stuff down immediately. And increasingly, there's going to be people just going, well, that just never happened. And you throw that into the mix of what I just described before, and people waiting to see what they want to see. And it's just, that's a sneak preview of next year, John. That's what we got. That's what we got in store for us. People are saying, well, that's just not true. That just never happened. That's AI. And I just, like I said, I'm not quitting. But I'm just saying, if you're asking about have I struggled with impartiality this year? Yes, I have. And this is part of the reason why. It's not a Trump thing. It's a people stopping to think thing. And I'm missing people thinking through things. And and there's still people thinking, but there's just less thinking than there used to be. There's more knee-jerk sports type partisanship than there used to be, and it's hard to deal with for me, I've got to say.
Yeah. Look, I can see why it's a little dispiriting to see. I mean, you could bring some of that back to Trump and say, well, look, he was the guy who's was the one who started talking about fake news, not as actual fake news, but as in stuff that he just thought was poorly reported, and then he was starting to say things like, "Oh, well, that Access Hollywood tape that was faked. I never said that."
Yeah.
So he's already started denying the things that we know in a gaslighty kind of a way. I mean, that's an interesting example, partly because. Look, it may or may not be the best policy idea, but it's an interesting idea. Why can't you put that out there and discuss it? I mean, if that Ramaswamy, got some kind of online backlash, that sort of says, well, he's not really a politician of great conviction. If he thinks that extending the school day by an hour is going to have positive educational outcomes and economic outcomes for families, let's have that discussion. Let's have it come up in a debate with this other candidate. There's nothing wrong with ideas in politics, but if you're going to immediately run away because of a bit of a backlash or some guy on YouTube going like this all the time. What's that about, Tim Pool? Here's the real story.
It was interesting how much he was rubbing his nose.
It was.
Draw your own conclusions. That's a fair point, John. The good stuff. Okay, look, we've probably said enough on time of that question. Sorry, I did hijack that. I did warn you. But I just think that's a big question, the impartiality question.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Google homimini or whatever. Best and worst of Planet America, best and worst of working with Chaz. Bear in mind, I will have a right reply here.
Yeah, sure. Best and worst of Planet America. I mean, look, the best thing is that it is journalistically every day, every week. It's you're dealing with what of the 20 things that are worth talking about, what are those that we have got time to talk about or time to add something we have something to say about, some analysis, some fact that has not been – there's no point in us doing the same thing that everybody has already seen on their smartphones all week. We need to go, well, if you've just seen these things or this has popped up on a website or something, here's some more information that helps you to better understand that thing you saw. And that in essence is, given that – in 2012, when we started, a few Australians had access to, Fox News and CNN through their Foxtel accounts in those days. Yes. But now, I'm sure you have as well. I mean, you're extremely well read, but you'll be getting alerts from friends going, "Oh my God, Trump!" You're like, what? What's he done now?
Oh yeah.
So we've got to try and keep up with it, and then get ahead of it or go deeper into it than other platforms are tending to do, and that's sort of our job. But that is a challenge, no doubt, and trying to get the right balance as well, because our audience has gone from when we first started, it was, people who were kind of real US politics nerds. US politics in the Trump era has gone very mainstream, and a lot of people that didn't even watch The West Wing back in the day or Veep, and now living and breathing American politics. So we're talking to a bigger and different audience these days, and that has challenges. So that is both the good and the bad of that. The good and bad of working with you. Lachy, can we do like a sealed section in this podcast? Is that possible?
Do you want to do an hour just together?
I was going to say, yeah. John needs an extra hour now.
How much time have we got? Look, I'm not going to pretend that it has been easy. There's a reason why we are known as the Noel and Liam Gallagher of American politics. There have been arguments, spirited arguments at times. There's been frankly dummy spitting, tears, recriminations, drunken rampages, quitting tours. I think we're lucky. There's a reason why we've done this show in its different forms for 14 years now, and kind of perfectly happy to keep doing it for another few years at least. The best thing about working with you is once you have, it's like working with anyone in any kind of a job for a period of time, you get to understand how the other person's brain works to an extent and how they're going to approach things. It's always a great relief to me when if I'm working on my part of a script for a program, and then I'll think, oh, gee, that thing's really interesting. Maybe I haven't got time, or I'm not sure how to work that in, or whatever. But I'll often sort of think of it, this is really interesting, or there'll be times where I'll say, there's a really interesting that sounds like something for you to have a look at. That I kind of now have a sense of. We tend to find. The main points we agree on. We find different things interesting, but also know that the other one is going to cover off on certain aspects of a story. And often it's the case that, I'll do kind of a setup, and then you'll come in with but here's the thing kind of and figuring out that dynamic and getting that kind of rhythm it's a bit of a luxury. It is kind of like just, and it's the same with the team that we have working behind the scenes. Our producer, our editors, we've worked together long enough that it doesn't become easy, but it becomes a lot easier to do a better job. And we always try and do a better job still. And we do have, perfectionists in the group and everything else. But generally speaking, I think, everybody, you and I included, everybody sort of feels good about what we're collectively able to produce. The worst thing, the ham. The ham. It's the ham.
That's fair.
As many peppers will have realised, Chaz has been on something of a health kick, a high-protein health kick this year with excellent results, I may say. But it does involve essentially mainlining ham.
That's true.
And, you're on a studio set, you're in a fake situation room, and you're getting ready to do a show, and the person next to you has got the double smoked going like this, and you're just, oh my goodness me, that's a bit much. 10 o'clock in the morning, come on. Your colon, my goodness.
The good news for you is I'm kind of changing to turkey.
It's a good lean meat. It can be dry, but it's a good lean meat.
Yes.
Is it less processed though? Are you getting the?
I'm getting the best ham. It's
still processed.
Yeah, but less than
it was a pig.
Less than the worst.
It's been processed to go from pig to what you have wrapped in paper.
I'm pretty sure what I've got wrapped in paper is the shape of a pig. Pretty sure.
Yeah, RFK's right hand.
I think you'll find. And it was a knife. You're going to think that these answers were coordinated, but they weren't. Mine are written in front of me. I'm telling you, this is why we work well together. Our answers are quite similar.
I read my answer off his screen.
Best thing about Play America, I agree, is that we get to talk about a topic 3 or 4 days after it happens. So we get to not be dumb. That's nice.
You get to absorb it a little bit first.
That's right. Worst thing, I've kind of already touched on this, is I hate covering partisan stories about tweets. I hate it. And we just have to. But yeah, and people get more angry about those stories than any other story. You can talk about immigration, or you can talk about people being shot or whatever, and there'll be way, way less negative reaction than if you talk about some tweet that you've interpreted differently to how the audience have. And then, oh my God, the feedback rolls in. It's just, they get so angry about shit that does not matter. And it's just, if I had my way, we wouldn't even be covering that story. It just doesn't matter. But it's on the front page of every paper, so of course we have to cover it. I'm not complaining. I'm saying we just have to cover it, but I hate it. So that's the worst thing about Play America. In terms of best and worst things about John, it's actually quite good that I would say best and worst things. I mean, working with John, you can see he's a pretty good guy. But one of the things which I think that makes the show work is that there are benefits to the differences that we rely on, and that's kind of what you were just alluding to there. And it relates to the best as well, because for me, the best thing about working with John by a mile is he loves doing the things I least like doing. Like, for instance...
Cleaning up the office.
I wish you loved doing that. No, it's like interviewing people about topical stuff. I mean, I don't like interviews at the best of times. I especially hate interviews about topical stuff. John loves it.
Oh, yeah.
5 minutes after an event happens, John can conduct the best interview you've ever seen for 15 straight minutes with someone. Just, it doesn't matter. Like, literally, you tell him a story exists and you just hit record and he'll interview someone, bang, and they're good questions. With me, if I can't read something beforehand, I am useless. I offer nothing. A number of times when I just say to John, well, I've just got nothing to ask. And he just, great, I'll take it. Cool. Right? So, and we do that. You'll notice that often with our interviews, I just won't be there. And it's because I just said, I got nothing.
Yeah. Although I will counter that and say, for the ones where you do feel comfortable doing the interviews, the thing that I like about having you there to do those is I'll tend to ask the basic journalistic questions of tell us about this, how did you feel, how did you react, etc. Explain, that kind of thing. You'll just come at it from a slightly different angle, and it might be a very specific or technical question or a legal question or something that I would not necessarily think to ask, or just point out a kind of a something that is you're not looking to extract information in quite the same way as I am. You're wanting to answer a question that is in your head because you have read about this topic and you don't understand what this thing is. How do you explain this? And that's where, sadly, when we do those interviews together, the guests always say to Chaz, "That's an excellent question," and I'm just like.
And then we cut it because
of
it's
course.
never good for TV.
We haven't got time.
But I love those questions, and I love them being on Facebook, so you can all enjoy them.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yes, you're right. I would rather ask somebody who knows than spend 10 hours reading about it, which is what you do,
Yes.
and then determine I haven't really got anything to ask about this, which is pretty much how we do it.
That is exactly how we do it. And and in terms of the worst thing for me about working with John is the flip side of that. It's exactly the same thing, which is that our only area of disagreement, literally our only area of disagreement, it's not passionate, but our only area of disagreement is what we value. In that, I don't like interviews generally. You like interviews. There's a change of pace, right? I always think you can get information out more efficiently without an interview. And John agrees. He just thinks it's bad information. It's
I
just
don't think
boring.
it's bad information. I think it's a different way of bringing out information.
Yeah, but you like to have light and shade in an episode.
Yeah.
Whereas I just want shade.
Yeah.
Right? It's just and also in terms of the kind of interviews that we value, for me, I only care about academics or people with a particular personal experience. Like if someone's been through something harrowing, if we're talking immigration, there's someone who's actually taken by ICE, I go, great, let's talk to this rando about what it was like to get taken by ICE. I can't read about that. You'd be happy, for instance, Kamala Harris. That's the next question. What you ask Kamala Harris?
Yes.
If someone asked me what you asked Kamala Harris, I say I wouldn't. I don't want to talk to Kamala Harris. I have no interest in Kamala Harris whatsoever. Yeah. She's not going to give me a real answer, and I think that she's full of shit. I'm not saying that she can't be president. I'm just saying I'm not interested in talking to her. Whereas if someone offered you a Kamala Harris interview, you'd be yes, let's go. And that's a difference between me and John. And you go, well, how's that your worst thing? Well, the thing is, it's not really a negative. It's something where if we got a show with Kamala Harris in it, I'm wishing she wasn't there. But I also know that the audience is glad she's there, and that's why it's not negative. That's an area where John represents our audience a lot better than I do, and I know it. And I know if we had a show which was just me, if John didn't exist and it was a Chaz show,
it would be called the PEP podcast.
Well,
and it would go for 6 hours.
And there would be about 20,000 viewers. Like the PEP podcast. No, but that's not good compared to a TV show. Right? Whereas because John has input in this show, we have hundreds of thousands of viewers. That's the difference. And which is one of the reasons why I'll never make a Chaz TV show, because I'm not an idiot.
I think we've discovered something quite sweet in that because people ask me when you're not here, so I'm more comfortable saying nice things about you. But I will say to people, I think the secret sauce of the program is Chaz. Chaz is what makes the program not just another reasonably well informed American politics show. So I guess that probably again helps explain why we choose to keep working together. Is that if you've got enough humility and respect for the other person to sort of think, I think they're probably the reason why this kind of works, or at least they're an important part of why it works. I think that's probably healthy.
This is making me uncomfortable, so let's move on. That's Nath's got a question. Kamala Harris one. I'm not even going to answer this because I've already told you my answer.
Yeah.
She can bugger off.
Get stuff.
But
loser.
Who would be your dream interview guest for Planet America, John? And if you did ABC's 7:30 interview with Kamala Harris instead of Sarah Ferguson, what questions would you have asked her?
Well, the reason why my favourite political interviews are not with current candidates, but are with people who are just out of the game by about 10 years. and they've still got all their marbles, and mostly, and not all of them. They've still got some of their marbles, and they're possibly struggling a little bit for relevance. The phone isn't ringing as much; they're not getting as many requests to do hits on American television. That's the sweet spot for me. Those are the people who will talk to an Australian about American politics, who is asking genuine questions about, whether it's usually it's to do with running for the presidency or the way Congress works or the primaries or whatever it might be. Those people are fantastic because they got nothing to lose anymore. They will tell you what it was like when they ran for president, what the candidates are going through leading into this debate, how they're feeling about it. They'll even open up the extent to which they're in touch with their emotions, and these are often they're pretty impressive people, but they're often kind of a little insulated from their emotions. But sometimes it takes them a long time to get over losing an election. Kamala Harris, one of the most a question that I would ask her would be about the fact that she, from what I've read, rather like Mitt Romney in 2012, the first election we covered for Planet America, people around them were selectively looking at the data, looking at the polling, and were telling them leading into Election Day, and on Election Day, you're going to win this. You're going to win this. And so what is it like to realise that you're not winning this, to have prepared yourself, to have looked inward to think, I'm running for president of the United States. I can be president of the United States. The people around me have said you can be president. Your parents said when you were a kid you can be president one day, my girl. All of those sorts of things. You're there and you've had billions spent on making you look good, and now it's election day and you're told you're a loser. And how that affects the kind of ego that strove for that office. That fascinates me. And I've had those conversations with a number of people who have run for president, and it can be incredibly tough. So I'd want to talk to Kamala Harris about that personal stuff. There's really no point in getting her to say the same things that she was saying all of last year about Donald Trump and how bad he is and how he's a risk to America, and this is about the future of our democracy, and I'm worried about our institutions. I'm worried about even if this nation has a future. There's no point in giving her questions that are going to lead to those sort of pat answers that we've heard already. To talk about the experience of running for president, those 107 days, what that was like. Was it just being on a roller coaster that was, in danger of coming off the rails at any moment? Was it like being at the calm in the eye of the storm, that in fact you're insulated from a lot of the noise and the fury? What was the experience like? What did she learn about it? What was the experience of losing like? How does that affect how you feel about, will I run again? Because some presidential candidates have said to me, once you cross that threshold, once you've convinced yourself that you can be president, you've served in high office, you've known a few presidents, they're kind of idiots. If he can do it, I can do it. They go through that process of convincing themselves they can be president. So I would want to ask Kamala Harris those questions. Questions essentially about her, not about Trump, not about Joe Biden and everything else. I mean, I would ask a Joe Biden question that I would not expect to get a fully honest answer, but I would probably approach. You'd think about it. Well, how do I approach that question about Joe Biden's cognition and health and decision to run for another term? And you'd have to think. Well, maybe the way to approach it is, she was accused of, back in that debate when she and Biden were running against each other in the primaries, and she castigated Biden for palling around with segregationist senators. And Jill Biden in particular was furious with her for that. And a lot of people around Joe Biden, who are very protective of Joe, were really doubted that Kamala Harris would be loyal as a vice president. They counselled against her being his pick because they thought, no, she's going to put the knife in. So I would probably try and talk about it from, given your previous experience and having been his rival, you ran for president against him, you then became his running mate, having to overcome those concerns about whether you were too ambitious and lacked loyalty and whether you were going to knife him in the back. Did that affect how you stood back in that period in 2023 and into 2024, when there were signs from anyone who was around him that he was in decline, and that maybe the decision in late 2022 to run again, maybe that should have been revised? Did you have any thoughts of that sort? Did you just put it out of your mind? Did you just know that your only chance of becoming the nominee was to be 100% loyal and you couldn't possibly do it, or did you have conversation? So you'd try and approach it in that kind of a way. You'd still probably not get the answer that you wanted to, because at the end of the day, this is a 15-minute interview. She doesn't know me from a bar of soap. Why would she open up and tell me something that she hasn't told 100 other reporters? Sometimes just setting up a question that is meant in a very genuine way, not in a gotcha way, you can get candor. Not often, which is, goes to your point of it's a waste of time. There's no point talking to these people because they'll lie to you. They won't tell you. They've got no need to tell you the truth, to open up to you. But maybe 10 years after they've retired, they will.
It's a good question. It's definitely a good question. He said, this is exactly why I was glad I sat out of the Kamala Harris interview that John conducted fictionally.
Damn, that's Sarah Ferguson, who I thought did a great job.
I didn't watch it. It's Kamala Harris interview. I didn't care.
Good. Yeah, no, Sarah Ferguson's one of these annoying interviews. I watch her interview, so I thought, I wish I'd thought of that. That's a good question, and she's brave, and she's honest, and she's good. If you want to feel better about doing interviews, you could do worse than just look at a Sarah Ferguson interview.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Maybe.
By the way, it's not really a joke, but an in theme for around the Play America offices is I keep on pitching John to be doing long form interview shows on the ABC. I'm pitching shows for him because I just think it's a talent, and there is no long form interview show on the ABC.
And I keep suggesting, yes, but we'll need a band. We need an orchestra, and Don Lane show style. I'll do a song and dance at the top of the show, and if there's no time for interviews, so be it.
There's a vacancy opening up on CBS. That's all I'm saying.
That is a dead format. Not even the ABC would resurrect that.
Chris asks, what was one thing that surprised you about Trump term 2 so far? What are your predictions for the midterms a year out?
Nothing has surprised me. It is pretty much what you would expect if you took Trump from his first term, added 4 years of age, and the freedom that comes from never having to stand in another election. He's still very focused on polls, but he doesn't need to win another election. He's also he's talking more about whether he goes to heaven or not. You don't get to be that rich or that powerful without having a certain psychological need. I think it's fair to say. And Donald Trump is all psychological need. He's in on a grand scale. And so he's gained in confidence in the role. Not that he ever lacked in confidence, but he allowed himself to be surrounded by people in his first term who thought they knew better, but most of them did. All of them probably did. But he now just has people that you're the president. Yes, exactly. You're absolutely right. So he's surrounded by, call them sycophants or yes men and women or whatever. But he's the guardrails are no longer there. Yeah. But I think the things that he has retained is a short attention span, a shallow level of interest in most topics. If he was passionate about anything, if he understood issues and their complexity and was really driven to try and fix them, they'd be interesting. Someone like Bill Clinton or even Barack Obama, both really got into the wonky details, and they almost, they like to get results, but they also enjoyed the process. Trump is no process, all result. Yeah. It's like basically, let's get a ceasefire agreement. Let's sign this trade deal. Let's do this thing, and then we'll figure it out later, maybe if we need to. The number of agreements that he has signed, which are actually just a meaningless, non-legally binding undertaking to, we're going to spend trillions of dollars in America. Oh, thanks very much. That kind of stuff.
He cares about the existence of a deal more than the content of the deal.
Right. Yeah. So the thing, and clearly the Project 2025 crowd have used him as a vehicle to get a bunch of things done that they wanted to get done. Elon Musk similarly. The extent to which, particularly as Trump continues to lose interest, lose energy, continue to age in office, the extent to which we get a sense that he is being kind of manipulated, used, a bit of elder abuse in the Oval Office. He's got all this money, he's got all this power. If he's not really wielding it, somebody else is going to try to, whether that's the Vice President or the Secretary of State. So I think, my expectation is that we're going to sort of see, if not the sharks circling, we're going to see the pretenders to the throne, those who want to take over in 2028 with his blessing, the extent to which that will be still politically meaningful. That's what I'm looking forward to. But as for what's happened this year's, no, it's just it's a guy with very few constraints, large amounts of power and money, prepared to use them, all of which adds to the momentum, I think, for those who would ordinarily rival him or limit his power. To at some point, it becomes like, whether it's the celebrity producer who they have a couple of flops and then suddenly the banks don't want to give them money anymore, and you start to get bullying complaints and all other things happening with these people. There will be a point at which it probably comes tumbling down for Trump, and if he has done seriously illegal things, that's when we'll probably find out about more of those kinds of things once Congress is looking at it. But right now, he seems to be enjoying no longer being seen as a failed one-term president. The question is whether he goes on to become a moderately successful two-term president or just another failed two-term president. And I think the jury's still very much out that. His polling is bad now and getting worse. And I don't necessarily think that it's going to get too much better for him. So then the question is, well, what does he do? What does he do? If he no longer needs the popularity, is he just going to try and make more money? He's got more money than he could ever spend. So what's he in this for? That's the big question for me heading into next year, I guess.
Yeah, as far as predictions go, I agree with you about at some point in time he's coming down to earth, and I suspect that's going to be the midterms. I think my prediction, in one word, the midterms is devastation. Like I think it's going to be a bigger loss than 2018. I think that he's already. I mean, if the elections were held tomorrow, I think he'd lose pretty badly, and I think everything's getting worse from here for the next year. I think the immigration situation is getting much worse. I think the economy is getting worse. I think that his temper is getting worse. And I think that there are going to be some big conflicts coming up, especially with the Supreme Court. I think people think the Supreme Court are completely in his pocket, and I don't think they are. I think that as much as they frustrate me, I think that the Trump administration, as much as the Supreme Court frustrate me, I think the Trump administration has played them cleverly and has advanced all the easy cases for them. And they've been keeping the hard cases behind. And the hard cases are all coming up. And I think Trump's going to lose his temper with them at one point in time. And that's not going to... I don't think he'll end up winning that battle. And I think that's not going to help him in the midterms, because I think that's going to come right before the midterms in July. So my suspicion is the midterms are going to be ugly. Democrats still won't take the Senate. But I think they're going to take a lot of seats in the House. We'll see about that. In terms of the one thing that surprised me about Trump's term so far, I'm genuinely surprised he went as hard on tariffs as he did. I mean, I was expecting tariffs. He loves tariffs. But he's gone nuts on tariffs. I did not expect that. I didn't think he was an economic whiz, but I thought he knew more about economics than that. I thought that was just suicidal. And I think he's going to pay for it. I think that he's going to pay for it because he now owns the economy in a way he wouldn't have. He'd still be blaming Biden until 2028 if he could. Obama was blaming Bush all the way through the 8 years. Sure. And Trump could have done the same. But he threw it away by embracing tariffs so hard. And cost of living was always going to be trouble for him because that's how he won the election. And he just slid his own wrists. I don't understand why he went that hard. So that's the one thing I don't understand. I was surprised by. And that's pretty much it for that. Now, we've gone past 65 minutes now. In fact, depending on how Lackey's edit goes, we might even be pushing 70. So let's just do one more question. Okay. I should say the question I'm skipping, because I can answer it for John in like one sentence. From Simon, has finding guests become easier now? People are used to MAGA wrath, or is there still hesitance to come on the show? No, it's getting worse. It's getting worse all the time. There we go. That's the answer, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you can get somebody to come on the television to talk to us, but we don't want to put hacks on.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
And so if you want to get somebody who has expertise and currency, with the possible exception of some aging tenured professors, it is hard to get people who are balanced and interesting.
Yeah. So the final question from Kangaroo Bob: if you had the power, John, what's the number one thing you would change about US policy?
About US policy, a policy question. Well, when we've talked about this in the past, if I was going to change the American political system, it would be compulsory voting or compulsory registration to vote. I think that would save a lot of their problems, and I'd reform the dark money that goes into politics as well. As for policy, I don't know. I mean, I don't tend to take a position on policy, in terms of right and wrong. In terms of American foreign policy, the what's interesting, I guess, about the Trump era is that it has been, to a large extent, a continuation of what Obama was seeking to do, which was to step back from the post-World War II sort of US as global police model into a more of a role of kind of moral leadership and diplomatic force, not necessarily military force. And that's where Trump and Obama are, similar in some ways. Neither of them want to get involved with wars. And, what's if I would say what is the best thing about Donald Trump, it's he doesn't like wars. Imagine if Donald Trump liked wars. Like he starts, cultural wars and all sorts of things. But if he actually was if John Bolton's brain was transported into Donald Trump, it would be frightening. Look, I'd say generally speaking, I mean, the way in which Trump is winding back progress in areas of diversity, gender and racial, it's just sad. I mean, in our lifetimes, you think of the progress that we have seen through the 80s, 90s and 2000s, so that the world isn't solely run by middle-aged white men like us, that's there's been a couple of steps back in this term particularly, and the way that has infected not just institutions and corporations in the United States, but any Australian company or university that is seeking to do business with the United States, get research grants or sales, or they're getting rid of the diversity sections on their websites. Australian banks are doing this kind of thing. They're just kind of diversity washing, or the opposite of diversity washing. They're getting rid of any talk. And look, you could certainly argue that some of particularly the language and the policing of language around that had gone too far, or had gone to a point where a lot of people weren't comfortable with it. But the fundamental kind of recognition that our societies have inequalities that we need to actively address, and that has just been chucked out this year, is quite dispiriting. If I was going to do any, if Kangaroo Bob's question is specifically what Trump policy would I get rid of first, I guess I would say that anti-DEI stuff, without going to kind of the caricature of the woke alternative, but just the reasonable, human rights position of fundamental human equality, and fix the systems that discriminate against that. That would be the policy I'd change.
I think you're right to just note the word policy, because what do we mean by policy? If I could change one thing about America, it would be to make civics education compulsory, preferably 20 years ago. Yeah, because I think ignorance is their biggest problem.
Understand the system you're destroying.
Totally, yeah. I think ignorance is so much their biggest problem. But I think that in terms of like parts of the system, if I could just wave a wand and get rid of the unitary executive theory, just it never existed, that would make me very happy, because from a legal perspective, I think that's the reason why there's no chance of a bipartisan congressional appointment anymore. which is the reason there's no chance of bipartisanship anymore, which is the reason there's no chance of cooperation anymore. And I think that is like the original sin of so many problems in America at the moment with partisanship, which just makes the whole place dysfunctional. But from an actual like policy kind of view, there's one thing I could change. It's actually not even, got nothing to do with the Trump administration at all. I'd go further back. I wish that back in 2005, whatever, they instituted E-Verify properly.
Yeah, right.
E-Verify is the program where when someone is going for a job, you can see if they're a citizen or not. If they're not a citizen, they can't get the job. And if you're an employer who hires someone who fails an E-Verify check, you, the employer, get fined or potentially go to jail. If they did that way back when, there wouldn't have been the need for such extreme control over immigration levels because less people would have come because they're coming for a job, right? And people would have been less obsessed with immigration. They're just because I'm very pro-immigration. And I wish you could put that genie in the bottle, the hatred and the fear of immigration that America has, because I think immigration makes America special. And I think that if they hadn't even opened the bottle in the first place, we'd be so much better off. And so I really wish that simple change would have made such a humane difference to the immigration issue, but effective, humane but effective way of addressing it, and never to go out of hand. And yeah, at any point in time, if they could implement that and have humane reforms rather than having dudes in khakis running around with masks just acting like they're kidnapping people, it would make America a much better place and it would make me a lot happier.
It is extraordinary that 24 years after 9/11, there is still this spectre of linking illegal immigration and terrorism.
Yeah.
And we saw it recently with the DC National Guard shootings, that this kind of reflex action to jump to calling any foreigner a terrorist is it was definitely a turning point in America and how it felt safe in the homeland, and then it stopped feeling safe. It had Pearl Harbor, but other than that, America had enjoyed sort of the glorious isolation of being a long way from the troubles of the world when they were centered on Europe, and that certainly changed, and America clearly hasn't recovered from that, and may never do.
This is what I'm worried about. We're going way back when about things, permanent damage. That is one of the areas I think there's permanent damage being happening, and I just wish if there was one policy I could change, then it would fix that. And I think it's often the case that when you get tough on those kinds of issues in a humane way, it does open people up. Like Australia is a great example. Like you can say what you will about the Howard years, but the cracking down on immigration the way Howard did, forget Tampa for a second. I'm talking about not boat people. I'm talking about immigration. The cracking down on immigration the way Howard did had opened the door to Australia being probably the number one country in the world for taking immigrants. And yeah, there's pushback, but there ain't pushback like there is in America. And like when you have some kind of control over this situation, you can afford to be a bit more lenient. And then you have what I like, which is more immigration. Yeah. So it's
but if the narrative is all around migrant crime that therefore you need to, until they sort out the border, we need to buy another 5 handguns for the kids.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we're just that back to base alarm isn't going to cut it.
Yeah. Anyway, John, anything else you want to say before you go?
I have nothing to add at this time. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
I'll see you in 12 months.
Yeah. Are we doing it again next year?
If it still exists. If you'll let us.
I've booked my dentist appointment for the day before again. It's the way I schedule these things. So.
Well, at least your teeth will be good. Yeah. John, thank you so much. Right. Merry PEPmas and the Peppy New Year.
Same to Pew.
See you guys after the White Flash. Well, that was the one and only John Barron, Lachy.
That was, on behalf of the Peppers already, that was a ton of fun, Chaz.
That was a lot of fun. I wish that we could get him in the studio more than once a year, but yeah. I'll take what I can get.
He's right there. You could ask him.
I could assault him. Given the topic that we're going to talk about now, that would seem appropriate. When I say we could assault him, by ICE standards, that means we could breathe on him.
Give him a high five.
But, let's talk ICE. Now, Bo, who we had also a ton of fun with in part 2, he actually had a little bit about Chicago, which we cut out for duration because we were going a bit long.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
And it introduces this bit quite well. So why don't we just play what Bo had to say and then we'll come off that. Anyway, Bo, looking at the clock, I've got a couple of minutes left. We had a very big topic that was left over, but can you make it very small?
I'll try my best.
Okay.
And it's to do with the abuse and violation of constitutional liberties in the United States. And
Very small.
Very small.
Very small.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll try to make it small, and so we'll only look at Chicago. So back on November 6th, District Court Judge Sarah Ellis, who I think we've talked about before,
We have.
she issued a preliminary injunction barring the federal government from attacking Chicago residents engaged in lawful protests. The protected class for this litigation consisted of, quote, all persons who are or will in the future non-violently demonstrate, protest, observe, document, or record at Department of Homeland Security Immigration Enforcement. Now, you may say, Chaz, non-violently demonstrate. That sounds like it should just be protected by the First Amendment anyway.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think Judge Ellis really trusts the First Amendment to be upheld anymore, to be honest. And I think that's kind of a fair position to hold. The defendants, which included Trump, Noem, DHS, and others, sought a stay of the injunction. Why wouldn't they seek a stay of that? And the Seventh Circuit, with a panel consisting of 2 Trump appointees and a Reagan appointee, assuming for whatever reason that the government was acting in good faith, complied, and they stayed the injunction. They said that the preliminary injunction was overly broad, enjoining the president, DHS, DOJ, and anyone acting in concert with them. They also said that the order was too prescriptive, since it enumerates and prescribes the use of scores of riot control weapons and other devices in a way that resembles a federal regulation. Now, I think we need to introduce the Fifth Circuit to Trump 2.0. This administration will do anything in their power to find loopholes in judicial rulings.
Oh, will they ever?
Yeah. Like, remember what happened with Abrego Garcia?
Yes.
The Supreme Court, they said that they needed to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. And suddenly, Trump and the administration's like, what does facilitate mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what, does that mean in 10 years? Oh my God. Like, you need to tell this administration exactly what to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
They very much practice in bad faith.
Yeah, exactly. And if you leave gaps in who can do something, which was the whole, it's overly broad, or how they can do it, the whole idea being that it was too prescriptive, you best believe they're going to exploit the loophole.
Yes, they will.
Right? And so this was put even better by Ed Walker, writing An Empty Wheel, which you promoted last time, and it's a very, very good. I also support it if any of the Peppers want to check it out. He said, apparently, the panel didn't realize the extent of the duplicity of the defendants and their lawyers who routinely claim innocence because an order is not precise. I love the cynicism. It's absolutely warranted.
Oh,
Yeah.
very much so. I'm in part 3 in the Chaz Unleashed, I'm going to talk more about this case, with the Sarah Ellis version of this case, because she went into extreme detail of just how blatantly they were lying to the judge. And I'm amazed that these guys haven't been busted for perjury. Greg Bavino, the head of the CBP, the Customs Border Patrol, he just flat out got caught lying by video over and over again, and nothing's happened to him, which is part of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. If there's no consequences, they're not going to stop.
Yeah.
And I think the Ellis judgment was, 100 or 200 pages.
Yeah,
Or,
it's 224 from memory.
224 pages, and then this stay of the injunction was 2. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, show a bit of respect to Judge Sarah Ellis for going into all of this detail and try at least engage to some degree. Anyway, the panel also said that this class has no reason to fear imminent future harm, which is a requirement of a preliminary injunction. Perhaps they missed all the media reports of the violations of injunctions, within like a week of them being issued, where Chicago's PBS reported that Border Patrol and ICE were firing pepper balls, deploying tear gas and flashbangs in a heavily Hispanic neighborhood. But the most ridiculous idea comes, as always, from our friends in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And that's the suggestion that this injunction is a form of irreparable harm to the Trump administration, the poor Trump administration.
They love this argument.
Oh my God.
I must admit, I haven't seen the details of the Supreme Court aspect, so maybe I'm up the wrong tree here. But usually what they do, tell me if this is what they did this time. Usually what they do is they say that their government just has an interest in being able to do whatever they want with national security. And anytime they are stopped just on its own, depriving them of the right to use their powers commits irreparable harm to the government.
It's adjacent to that. It's very, very similar. So the Supreme Court hasn't directly ruled on this issue yet.
Yeah, there's a temporary ruling.
But it's it was cited. The Trump against CASA, which was the birthright citizenship case from earlier this year, that was cited for this point. Yeah. And in that case, the Supreme Court said any time that the government is enjoined, that means when they're subject to an injunction, by a court from effectuating statutes enacted by representatives of its people, it suffers a form of irreparable injury.
It's just an inherent irreparable harm.
Exactly.
By not being able to do what they like.
Yeah. What this is suggesting to me, and I may be wrong, but what this is suggesting to me is that a court cannot issue an injunction if that injunction prevents the executive from exercising its statutory power. Right? Now, what this seems to be ignoring is the Constitution. Like the freaking Constitution, right? So if we remember what the injunction was trying to stop, it was trying to stop the violation of First Amendment rights. Yes. So what the government, and for some reason this court, and these guys should know the law. Again, I shouldn't be criticizing them too much. I might be wrong.
I like the humility.
For some reason, the court seems to be forgetting is that statutes are subject to the Constitution. Right? So if you have a statute that violates the Constitution, that statute is invalid.
Constitution wins.
Constitution wins. The Constitution is supreme. And if a statute is empowering the executive to do unconstitutional things, the statute must be read down to limit the exercise to that which is permitted by the Constitution. So what this ruling seems to suggest to me is that ICE and Border Patrol can effectively violate constitutional rights so long as they claim to be enforcing a statute, right? Which seems completely backwards to me. Like it should be the Constitution first, then the statute, and then the application to the specific facts. It seems to be completely the wrong way around.
It's a fair point. I like it.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, that's quick. Well done.
And that's a lesson on civil liberties and constitutional rights violations in 10 minutes.
Excellently done. Those are the days, Lachy. You remember 2 days ago?
Actually, no. It's been a really long week.
I've watched a lot of movies in the last few days. I don't remember much either. Let's talk Chicago. As Bo was alluding to, we have an interesting situation in Chicago, Lachy, where Judge Sarah Ellis is outright accusing the DHS of lying to her. That's a very unusual situation where a judge stops presuming they can trust the government's statement of facts. It's one thing to say there is one official who's lying. Another thing to say the entire government is just full of liars. That's essentially what she's saying. Let's take a step back, though. Firstly, you might be wondering what this Chicago case is actually about. The main problem is that ICE and Customs keep on gassing people. Tear gas, that is, not mustard
not
gas from
gaslighting.
World War One. Oh, not gas. Well, they're definitely gaslighting people,
no,
but that's
true.
not illegal. The judge placed a temporary injunction on the use of violent crowd control techniques on protesters, such as riot control weapons, firing tear gas canisters, using force such as pulling or shoving a person to the ground, tackling, body slamming an individual, or striking a person with a vehicle. They sound like good things to crack down on, I would have thought. And, now, we should say a higher court did eventually overturn that injunction after many of the officers who had already left for Charlotte. They said the injunction was too prescriptive and affected too many law enforcement officers. And I disagree with that decision, but that's not the point. The point is when the injunction was in place, ICE and Customs seemed to completely ignore that restraining order and just use the same techniques anyway. There's an interesting sworn statement in the court from Thomas Mills, who is a chief of police, in the long-serving chief of police. The use of chemical agents by federal agents at the ICE facility in Broadview has often been arbitrary and indiscriminate. At times, it's used when the crowd is as small as 10 people. The deployment of chemical agents is dangerous to the health of both demonstrators and first responders on the scene. In addition, when ICE agents deploy chemical agents, it causes the crowd of protesters to disperse, sometimes running into the road, which is dangerous both for them and for motorists. Broadview police officers have had to attempt to position themselves in a way that directs the crowd to disperse in a safe manner. Over the course of my career in law enforcement, the way in which federal agents have indiscriminately used chemical agents in Broadview is unlike anything I have seen before. And this guy is very much like a Danny Glover type. Only one more assignment till I retire from this shit. And that's what he's saying. And so the judge was looking into what was going on. And what she found was they just kept on lying to her about what they were doing and why. Agents literally used tear gas in residential areas multiple times without audible warnings, according to the judge. Not on rioters or insurrections, on families. Families of both illegal immigrants and citizens. Footage taken by Customs on their body cam showed one agent at one point telling another one they should throw their tear gas canisters, quote, for fun.
Far out.
The judge said the gas did not help agents leave. Instead, they weren't able to leave in their cars after using the gas because it overwhelmed them so much that they had to flee the block on foot. Talking about the agents themselves.
That was fun.
There was no threat when gas was deployed, says the judge. Now, I should say, before I talk more about this, because I am going to talk more about this, there was another case involving Judge Cummins at exactly the same time in Chicago, which you shouldn't confuse with, because that's also a terrible case, where he believed ICE were arresting people without warrants in violation of a consent decree. That consent decree was meant to ensure that agencies complied with federal law, which stipulates that immigration officers may only make a warrantless arrest if two conditions are met. One, immigration officers must have reason to believe that the individuals in the US in violation of immigration law. Two, that they are likely to escape before a warrant can be obtained. They're the only conditions. Judge Cummins thought they were arresting people for basically nothing. So he ordered the Trump administration to release the roughly 615 illegal immigrants who had been listed as taken by Chicago immigration raids without warrants. He wanted to release them on a $1,500 bond unless they could be shown to pose a significant risk or have mandatory detention orders. One of the two.
Right. And Trump responded,
reasonable.
These are the worst of the worst.
They always say that. Whatever they do, they're the worst of the worst. Well, let me read you the quote from Assistant Homeland Security Secretary Tricia McLaughlin, who you'll get used to during this next hour or so. Tricia McLaughlin said, at every turn, activist judges, sanctuary politicians, and violent rioters have actively tried to prevent our law enforcement officers from arresting and removing the worst of the worst. Well done, Lachy. Now an activist judge is putting the lives of Americans directly at risk by ordering 615 illegal aliens be released into the community. Okay, so that's the official line. Guess how many they could show were a security risk to the judge? Out of 615.
1%, 6.
Pretty good. You'll be a little bit off, 12. By the way, that's security risk or have detention orders. So maybe it was only 6 who were security risk. We don't know. It was maximum 12 who were either a security risk or had detention orders. By the way, 615 was just the first list made by the immigration activists.
So they're not even really getting the broad scope.
No, the list was actually, a couple of weeks later, they had the list of 3,000.
Whoa.
And this case is ongoing. Okay, but back to the dishonesty in the Sarah Ellis's case. Because let's not confuse these outrageous cases. A lot of the action happened at the Broadview Ice Facility, where there was a big standoff. The protesters were it was like a honeypot for protesters, and so there was lots of standoffs there. On September 27th, Greg Bavino declared there was going to be a shit show, and they had a show of force. They arrested 11 people. Every one of the charges from that day have since been dropped. All right. Included a very dangerous, undoubtedly 70-year-old Air Force veteran who was charged with assault when he fell as officers pushed him back, and they charged him with assault.
That's a new low, surely.
His chest assaulted their hands.
And the ground.
Yes. Anyway, Judge Ellis said, speaking about the 5 cases that got to a grand jury. Oh, sorry, this is her speaking about the 5 cases that got to a grand jury before being dismissed. The undersigned magistrate judge obtained a sworn statement from the affiants in each affidavit at the time of complaint issuance. Not only were the affidavit allegations true, so they're saying that they swore that their allegations against these people were true, but that video evidence of the encounters existed, that the affiants had reviewed the video evidence, and the video evidence corroborated the version of events set forth in the affidavits. But the court can't help but note just how unusual and possibly unprecedented it is for the U.S. Attorney's Office in this district to charge so hastily that either could not obtain the indictment in the grand jury or was forced to dismiss upon the conclusion that the case is not provable in repeated cases of a similar nature. So 5 times they swore certain events of assault, and they said they had seen
footage.
Video proof
backing
them up, and they dropped all 5 charges. Either because the grand jury wouldn't back them up or because they said it couldn't be proven. Wow. Even though they said they had seen video evidence when they arrested them. Okay, when they charged them. The worst example of this is a guy called Greg Bavino, who is the head of Customs Border Protection, and he is the Napoleon of this operation. This little man, big-time short person syndrome, and I can say that. Of all people, I can say that. Big-time short person syndrome, going around barking orders like a little chihuahua, and he seems to just love violence. And he is particularly noteworthy because of the amount of times he obviously lied under oath in court, even when being shown video footage contradicting his statements.
Wow.
For example, I'm about to show you footage of a priest who was a protester getting shot in the head by a pepper ball when he clearly posed no threat whatsoever. Have a look at this video.
Oh dear.
You can see he's standing by himself. There's no one even near him. Oh, and he's pretty clearly shot in the head. Greg Bavino was shown that footage, and he wasn't sure he'd been hit in the head by a pepper ball. He wasn't quite sure what was going on. He also said, like, he was shown it just before the court, and he said, I just didn't really remember what was going on there. That footage I saw as well is very unclear.
No, it is really unclear when the smoke comes off of his head.
Yes. Here's another example. This involves Greg Bavino himself. You're about to watch Bavino tackling a protester to the ground, but even after watching the video, instead of admitting to using force, Bavino denied it and stated that the force was used against him.
Move down the block. I'm going to move you down right now. I'll fucking move your sucker. Oh,
All right, cue reasonable response.
Yeah, so...
Oh.
It goes on. My point is, that little guy is Greg Bavino clearly tackling the guy to the ground. And in court, after being shown that footage, he says that the guy used force against him, not the other one.
Well, I think you'll find actually they were both assaulted by the ground coming up to hit them.
Yes. And there's another example involving Bavino dispensing tear gas. Bavino represented that a rock hit him in the helmet before he threw the tear gas. He was thrown in response to having a rock thrown at him. He was shown video disproving this. And then, this is his sworn deposition. He said he was not hit with a rock until after he deployed tear gas, but that he only threw the tear gas after he'd received a rock which almost hit him. Then they showed him the video that did not show a rock thrown at him at all before he launched the first tear gas canister. And then he changed his story saying he was again mistaken and that no rock was thrown at him before he deployed the first tear gas canister. This is under oath. I don't know why these people don't get done for perjury. They just lie. Also, at one point, he denied throwing a canister of tear gas.
And there was footage of him throwing a
Yeah,
tank.
yeah. But then he explained it
Oh, okay.
because he actually threw 2 canisters.
That's poor form.
Yeah.
As a liar.
Yeah, he's just a bad liar as well, yeah. When asked the details of a video of the ICE processing centre in Broadview, he said he'd watched that video in preparation for the deposition, but then said, I can't recall the details of that video that I looked at. When further pressed, he confirmed there were figures in the video, but I just can't remember what happened. When asked about an incident where agents deployed tear gas in Irving Park as parents and children departed their homes for a Halloween parade, Bavino claimed the actions of the agents were justified if that happened. But he said he hadn't reviewed any video of the incident. He hadn't spoken with any of the agents involved, and he couldn't recall reading any reports on the incident. Ellis described him as not credible. Here's another example. This was a big story on October 4. We actually covered it on Planet America.
Mm-hmm.
A woman, Marimar Martinez, supposedly pursued ICE agents in her car. In fact, this is probably the biggest story out of Chicago. She supposedly pursued ICE agents in her car and then rammed them before being shot at by an agent, Agent Exum. She sounded insane the way it was first reported.
I was going to say, the word supposedly is doing a lot of work in this sentence.
This is the original report from Assistant Secretary, Department of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin, who, as I said, you're going to hear a lot from her. This morning, during routine patrolling in Broadview, in the same area of Chicago that law enforcement were assaulted yesterday, our brave law enforcement officers were rammed by vehicles and boxed in by 10 cars. Agents were unable to move their vehicles and exited the car. One of the drivers who rammed the law enforcement vehicle was armed with a semi-automatic weapon. Law enforcement was forced to deploy their weapons and fire defensive shots at an armed US citizen who drove herself to the hospital to get care for wounds. The armed woman was named in a CBP intelligence bulletin last week for doxing agents and posting online, hey, to all my gang, let's fuck those motherfuckers up. Don't let them take anyone. Thankfully, no law enforcement officers were seriously injured in this attack. The woman and her co-defendant were charged with impeding a federal officer with a deadly weapon, being the car.
Yeah.
Okay. ICE also released 911 audio of the agents from the day, calling for Chicago police help, only to be denied any help. That was Exhibit A, that story, for why they needed the National Guard.
Yeah.
Like this came up in court all the time going, hey, this shit's happening. We need the National Guard. The Chicago police are unable or unwilling to enforce the law. We called them and they left us to die. Mm-hmm. All right? Under attack from this woman with a semi-automatic gun and her car weapon. I actually played that 911 audio on Planet America. At the time I said, look, we've got no idea what's happened yet. Mm-hmm. But if ICE's claims are true, then that's really bad. That the police would leave them for dead, if that's true.
If.
Yes. I also played you the other side, which was J.B. Pritzker.
Yes.
Who said this.
DHS says that CBP officers shot and wounded a woman in Chicago yesterday after, they say, she allegedly rammed a law enforcement vehicle and agents were boxed in by multiple cars. The spokesperson for DHS, Tricia McLaughlin, accused Chicago police of leaving the scene and refusing to assist agents in securing the area. What do you know about this incident? Were federal agents boxed in and assaulted?
Well, we don't have a lot of facts. What happens in these sorts of incidents is typically ICE puts out a press release before anybody else can speak with the press, and then it gets reported on social media and elsewhere. Remember, these are the same folks who killed a person, unarmed person, just a couple of weeks ago in Franklin Park. At first, they said that the officer had been threatened with his life. The reality of it and the truth of it has now come out, and that wasn't the case. They killed somebody. So here, it's really hard to know exactly what the facts are, and they won't let us access the facts. They are just putting out their propaganda, and then we've got to later determine what actually happened.
Pritzker 100% nailed it, because the whole story was sus from the beginning. The video showed not 10 cars, but 2 cars. It didn't show either of the 2 cars boxing the ICE vehicle in, because they could. One could be in front, one could be behind.
Yeah.
But that's not what it showed. They were both following the ICE cars. The police complaint made no mention of Martinez having a gun at all. The prosecutor explained that there was a gun in her purse for which she had a concealed carry license, but she never brandished it. The video doesn't show them ramming the ICE car. It shows the ICE car swerving into them.
Of course, yeah.
The damage to her car, with her wheel well jammed in, is consistent with her being rammed by a larger vehicle, not vice versa. After the collision, Agent Exum says on his body cam, "Do something, bitch," then go out of the car, and he shot her.
Far out.
After the shooting, the lawyer says the body camera captures another agent coming up and saying, "Hey, what happened?" And Agent Exum points to his body cam and says, "Hey, don't speak. You're good."
Whoa.
And the supposed doxing from this woman involved her trying to find online who this guy was from a couple of days earlier. This absolute thug. Play this video.
What's up? Move up on me again. Step back. Step back. I'm moving over. I'm on a public road.
He's not doing anything. You're seeing that.
Jeez.
Another short man syndrome example there. I can also say that.
Yeah, but I've never seen you do that scene.
Yeah, but I'm short.
What do you like on the soccer field?
Not like
Bit of
that. Not like that. No. Anyway, you could see that guy was one of the rare ICE officers not wearing masks. And so online they were going, okay, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And she was one of those people. I mean, look, I don't like anyone being doxed. I don't like going after immigration officers, families and all that kind of stuff. I have no problems with when someone has conducted misconduct, find out who they are and reporting them.
Yeah.
But you don't take the law into your own hands. You report it to the official body. Regardless, that should not be the subject of an intelligence bulletin from ICE that she wanted to know who that guy was. She wasn't breaking the law. So why was she a member? Why was she part of an ICE intelligence bulletin? Just because she was offended by that. That was the doxing incident they're referring to. Also, and by the way, she didn't successfully dox him.
I was going to say, we know her name, we don't know his.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Agent Exum, immediately after the car ramming, drove his car to a Border Patrol mechanic in Maine. This is in Chicago. In Maine for repairs before any investigation could examine the damage to his car. Nothing suspicious about that. Also, Exum had apparently soon after texted about the incident with, "Cool, I'm up for another round of fuck around and find out." He's texting to his mates.
Yep.
And Exum sent out signal texts bragging about the shooting, saying, "I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Put that in your books, boys."
Far out.
Prosecutors dismissed the charges after Martinez's attorneys were about to reveal new text messages from Exum that had not yet been made public. We don't know what they are, but they must have been pretty bad that they just immediately just dropped the charges before they were even revealed. Yeah. So after all that bullshit, 0 charges. After all that, emergency,
she's gonna kill us.
10 cars being boxed and submachine guns and We need the National Guard. 0 charges. By the way, that incident wasn't alone. Judge Ellis said, back to Judge Ellis, body cam footage seems to disprove DHS allegations that protesters are ramming their vehicles every day during the operation, as claimed. In fact, it suggests that agents slammed on their brakes in an attempt to force accidents that agents could then use as justifications for deploying force.
Wow.
So that tactic that Exum employed
is
a standard tactic from dickheads. And the dishonesty continues. Judge Ellis says, the court also notes in at least one instance, an agent asked ChatGPT to compile a narrative for a report based off a brief sentence about an encounter and several images.
I hate that so much for so many more. It's not. My priorities aren't in order if that's a thing that I really hate, but I do hate that.
I understand. I hate it too. This further undermines their credibility and may explain the inaccuracy of these reports when viewed in light of the footage. Ellis also said, while defendants may argue that the court identifies only minor inconsistencies, every minor inconsistency adds up, and at some point it becomes difficult, if not impossible, to believe almost anything the defendants represent. Talking about the government there.
Yeah.
By the way, people detained at Broadview Detention Centre also tried to sue the government on October 30 for detainee abuse. Amazingly, according to the government, on October 31, the day after the lawsuit was filed, 2 weeks of footage that could show how they were treated were lost in a system crash.
No. No, not this.
Amazingly, a system crash destroyed all the evidence of the detainee abuse. Not that it happened. They denied it happened and try and prove otherwise.
Oh, it's a missing minute all over again.
A missing fortnight. Also, importantly, many of the incidents I've referred to here were specifically used as public evidence by DHS for why they should be unleashed on Chicago and across America. This isn't a context, though. We've spoken about the assault claims that the DHS constantly make. I made a joke about it before. It's their justification for masking up, for instance, because all the assaults
We're getting doxed. Yep.
The FBI, by the way, don't let their agents mask up during the same raids. If the FBI are there with ICE, the FBI guys aren't wearing masks.
Okay, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway.
There's nothing we could possibly learn from this.
As of late November, there was an 1,153% increase in assaults on ICE agents from January 21 to November 21 since last year. Yeah, like all year they've been building these stats. They've started with 300% more than last year, 400% more. Now we're up to 1,153% more than last year on the official stats.
But you've made this point a ton before.
I have, and I've got the latest numbers to add to that point. Let me make it again. When we're talking about percentages, don't worry about percentages. Worry about numbers, raw numbers. The actual numbers of assaults went from 19 last year to 238 this year. Okay, so that's more.
It is more.
It's certainly more. But considering the kind of shit they've been doing all year, just basically kidnapping people, often in plain clothes with masks in scary ways.
And not identifying who you are.
Yes.
Yep.
Doing it to thousands of people. And like we're talking thousands and thousands of people, often in violent areas, and these guys like to kick ass, right?
No. They don't.
Sorry. They like to have their ass kicked.
Yes.
And the ground.
Yeah.
238 assaults is an astonishingly small number when you think about it.
Well,
in that context. That should be one protest.
I'm wondering what the number of arrests is. Like, how is the number of arrests increased as a percentage if you represent it that way?
That's a great question.
Because then you can just very easily go, oh, well, if arrests have increased by 3,000%, but assaults have only increased by
1,100%.
Yeah.
That's a great question, and we don't have the answer.
Of course.
I don't have the answer.
They're not going to release those numbers.
That's true. Last year, ICE officers didn't conduct these kinds of operations as well. When there were raids And there weren't nearly as many, obviously. But when there were raids, that wasn't a task for ICE officers. ICE officers, until recently, did targeted operations. They didn't just go around just kicking ass in the middle of protests.
Throwing gas canisters for fun.
Yeah, they weren't doing that. They were like pinpricks in like they're doing like workplace raids or something like that, where there wasn't like a threat of violence, and like where they had information a particular criminal or something, they'd pinpoint that criminal. That's what ICE used to do.
Sure.
So of course they're not going to have as many. So of course they're going to have more assaults. They're doing something that's going to add to more assaults. They're comparing apples with oranges here, right? The LA Times investigated the federal districts where the Trump administration has conducted large-scale law enforcement and immigration operations this year, or threatened to deploy the military because of the supposed danger faced by federal agents. In those areas, there are 163 cases of assault of a federal officer filed this year between January 21 and November 21, okay? If you count the attacks on federal officers last year, full stop, not just ICE, but federal officers.
Okay, yeah, right.
So now it's apples with apples because it was other officers performing those
Doing
operations.
the raids,
right? Okay. That was up from 129 last year to 163 this year. So it's gone up 26%, which once again
including the increase in numbers.
in enforcement. Yes. Yeah. Like to me, that is actually an incredibly low number.
Yeah.
It gets worse though. There were some serious assaults. Don't get me wrong. 26 incidents resulted in a serious injury or required
an
officer.
Yep.
Or required an agent to seek medical attention. Okay, 26. So those are serious, right?
Yep.
But in just over half the cases scrutinised by the LA Times, out of that 163, court records show the officer who was allegedly assaulted suffered zero physical injury. And in another 30% of the cases, now we've got 80% of the cases when you add them together, officers sustained minor injuries such as bruising following a punch, kick, or bite. Now, look, to be fair, no one likes to be punched, kicked, or bitten. No one likes bruises. But just in the context of what we're talking about here, it wasn't like, rocks thrown at heads and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
More than a third of the cases the Times analysed ended in dismissals or acquittals. Take a guess how many convictions there have been this year for assaulting these officers.
What was the
163.
163. Okay. How many convictions? Last time it was a dozen. I'm going to go stick with a dozen.
A dozen were
That was just the number.
Was the number of people held back.
I'm going for some consistency.
Yeah, sure. The answer is zero.
Zero
convictions so far. Look,
Good.
some of them might be.
No convictions? Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them might be convicted eventually, but zero so far in 11 months. Wow. It's easy to explain what's going on here. A former ICE official who asked not to be named out of fear of retaliation.
Well, they're scared of getting doxxed.
Doxxed by
ICE.
By ICE, exactly. I mean, that really says a lot. You really should back over that. This is a guy, an ICE official, who is scared of being retaliated against for telling the truth about assaults. They said that in prior years, the US Attorney's Office didn't prosecute hardly anybody for assault unless the interaction turned violent. Whereas now, they charge anybody for anything. That's my editorial, not his. All he said was we didn't used to charge people for anything for assault unless the interaction turned really violent. That's what he's scared of saying publicly with his name because they have fear of retaliation. Listen to the head of CBP, Greg Bovino, our old mate Greg Bovino, on his body cam, or on someone else's body cam, telling agents to arrest anyone who touches them.
Body cams on. Arrest as many people that touch you as you want to. Those are the general orders all the way to the top. Everybody fucking gets it if they touch you. You hear what I'm saying? Less legals. We're going to look at shipping tractor trailer loads of that shit in here. So you catch what it's all about us now. It ain't about them. Professional, legal, ethical, moral. You know what we're talking about. Legal, ethical, moral. You're on camera. But other than that, it's what we do. What city is it, G? It's fucking ours. It's Fire fucking City.
Far out. These guys, man.
That's Bovino for you. In Chicago, I'm going to give you some examples of what I'm talking about. In Chicago, 4 assault cases were filed against protesters who flailed in response to being shoved or struck by Border Patrol agents. One of them was a 70-year-old. Right, so he got pushed, he flailed, they called that assault. All 4 of those charges have been dropped, unsurprisingly. Another case, a 4'11" US citizen was accused of standing in the path of an ICE officer in downtown LA with her arms extended, striking his head and chest when they collided in June. Her defense attorney said masked men ran at her and one of them shoved her to the ground. Velez, fearing she was being abducted, held up her work bag to shield herself.
Far out.
They charged her with assault. In another case, a man was accused of assault for smacking an agent with a hat. We got video here of it. Look at this fearsome attack with a hat. Now, you can see the guys gallivanting around. This is in slow motion, by the way. You can see the guys gallivanting around in front of a car. Yeah, he's being a smart ass, sure. He's annoying the officers, but he unambiguously gets first hit by the car, and then the officers come to arrest him rather roughly. And he just barely makes contact with that limp hat that he swats at the officer as all the ICE guys come in to kick his ass. They're the kinds of assaults that we're talking about, Lachy. That's what's happening. These are the assaults. This wave of assaults, right? Homeland Security officials also claim a 1,300% increase in vehicle attacks against ICE agents. Now, you know what I'm going to tell you. There were 2 last year, and there were 28 this year. Mm-hmm. Once again, 28 attacks with vehicles. That isn't a massive number, but it's a number. 28's not great. I'm not happy with 28 vehicle attacks. But remember, what we found before, they're using their vehicles to attack other people, and then they're charging them. Mm. And they're hiding the evidence as well, shockingly, by sending the car to Maine before it can be inspected. And the cameras in many of those 28 have shown the attacks were the other way around. Like when I say cameras, I don't mean their cameras. I mean the cameras from pedestrians and passerbys and stuff. Right?
I just can't help but feel like in all of these cases, it really does feel like a mafia movie style. Oh, no, I didn't touch anyone. I just held this pool cue here and then it snapped over his face somehow. Yeah, it feels like that sort of...
The shamelessness for me, and they never get punished for it, which just drives me crazy. And like the word I keep on using with the Trump administration, and I'm thinking of immigration when I use it, is lawless. They are so lawless. And they just don't care. They are entirely unaccountable. They just do whatever the hell they like. They think of themselves as they think they're the saviors of the world, and they can just do anything they like, and it doesn't matter because they're trying to get the bad guys. It doesn't matter who they get in the way in the meantime. It's also in Chicago, Maria Greeley, 44. Was on her way home from her job. This is not an assault anymore. This is just the context of there's just horrific shit happening everywhere. Was on her way home from her job at Beach Bar when she was surrounded, seized, and zip-tied by 3 ICE masked agents without cause or warning, and she was interrogated for an hour. She had her American passport on her when she was detained. How many people carry their passport around with them in their pocket, right?
American citizens, yeah. She does.
How did this happen? ICE saw her. By the way, she showed them the passport. It's not like they didn't look at the passport. She showed it to them. They decided it was a fake, and that she was an illegal immigrant because her name was Greeley, and she didn't look like a Greeley because she's Latino.
Oh, this is the profiling thing again.
Yeah. She's adopted. She said, I'm a Latina and I'm a service worker. I fit the description of what they're looking for now. They said this isn't real. They kept telling me I'm lying. I'm a liar. I told them to look in the rest of my wallet. I have credit cards. I have insurance. They didn't care. Wow. They interrogated for an hour before finally releasing her. She's now suing them, unsurprisingly. Yeah. Here's another video from Chicago. Check this one out. What you're seeing here is a bunch of police cars chasing an 18-year-old girl out of her car. They stop her when they chase her car. She stops. They pull her out physically from the vehicle. They throw her to the ground, and then they kneel on her neck George Floyd style, as they arrest her screaming. Assistant Secretary of DHS Tricia McLaughlin, that's an 18-year-old girl. Assistant Secretary of DHS Tricia McLaughlin tweets out, "Imagine being so desperate to demonize law enforcement. You post a video from a burglary arrest Chicago police made over a year ago. This isn't even ICE." CBS News confirmed it was a current arrest of an 18-year-old named Evelyn, who was indeed arrested by ICE and was screaming out, "I'm not resisting."
Okay.
So Tricia McLaughlin just flat out lied.
Jeez, come on.
Evelyn and her friends apparently had been monitoring ICE's presence in the area. When they saw that ICE had arrived, they went to warn everyone, and the ICE saw them and chased after them. Hence the arrest. By the way, there's nothing against the law warning people about ICE.
No,
that's not breaking any laws.
Yeah, man.
But we'll get to that in a second. They're trying to make it against the law. We'll get there. Evelyn and her friends, so Evelyn was arrested, her friends got away. They were detained for hours. She was detained for hours without being charged with anything before she was released. House Representative Raja Krishnamurthy said the events in Hoffman Estates embody everything that's wrong with the Trump administration's militarized ICE raids: cruelty without accountability, secrecy without oversight, and power without restraint. Perfectly put. Now, another video for you. This news producer got arrested in Chicago.
What's your name? What's your name?
Debbie Brockman, I work for WGN. Let them know.
I got you. Yep. Debbie Browning?
Brockman.
You can just hear the terror in her voice.
Oh, poor things.
Tricia McLaughlin released a statement. US Border Patrol was conducting immigration enforcement operations, and when several violent agitators used their vehicles to block in agents in an effort to impede and assault federal officers. In fear of public safety and of law enforcement, officers used their service vehicle to strike a suspect's vehicle and create an opening. As agents were driving Deborah Brockman, a US citizen, threw objects at Border Patrol's car, and she was placed under arrest for assault on a federal law enforcement officer. But then some video was released from the public showing that Brockman was already detained in the agent's van when it drove off and struck another vehicle. Greg Bovino then tweeted out a picture of her in the car saying, "This employee of a local television network decided to take the news cycle to a whole new level by throwing an object at Border Patrol agents conducting lawful duties. Reporting now shifts to a different narrative, one of assault on a federal officer, a serious felony." Her lawyers adamantly deny any allegation she assaulted anyone. They said she was just walking to the bus stop when she was violently assaulted by federal agents. Who's telling the truth? I don't know because there's no video of that. But I do know this. She was detained for about 7 hours before she was released without charges. So, did she do anything? Why didn't they charge her?
Why didn't even? It's like if they're not charging.
Yes. Here's another Chicago story. There's all been happening in Chicago recently. This is why there's been this Sarah Ellis case. ICE clearly drive recklessly in the next video, and they turn into a car that is driving straight ahead, and they create an accident. Play it, right, Lachy, as we watch them then. Oh, there we go. That's them driving into the black car, as you can see. They then drive off for a second. They stop, and then let's get forward. And then they jump out and arrest her for just driving while being crashed into. She doesn't want to come out, so they drag her out by the feet. If we have a look here, she's clearly not very happy about this because she has no idea who the fuck these people are. Remember, it was an unmarked car, and they're also unmarked. Wow. They just look like a militia. They drag her out. She's like flailing at them with her feet. Hey, guess what happens, Lucky? She gets charged for assault. They say she was taken into custody because she violently resisted arrest. Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin says...
No, don't do this again.
She used her vehicle to block in agents, honking her horn and she struck an unmarked government vehicle as they were departing. In fear of public safety and of law enforcement, officers attempted to remove her from the vehicle. She violently resisted, kicking 2 agents and causing injuries. Did they look injured to you? This agitator was arrested for assault on a federal agent. She said the confrontation reflects a growing and dangerous trend of illegal aliens violently resisting arrest and agitators and criminals ramming cars into our law enforcement officers. She's a citizen, by the way. That woman is suing them as well.
Cool.
A lot of lawsuits. I can keep on going. Another example, an Alabama construction worker, Leo Garcia Venegas, is a U.S. citizen who's been detained twice during construction site raids in Alabama, despite carrying a valid state ID on him at all times. He's suing them also for racial profiling. Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said, allegations that DHS law enforcement officers engage in racial profiling are disgusting, reckless, categorically false. What makes someone a target for immigration enforcement is they're illegally in the US, not their skin colour, race or ethnicity. Under the 4th Amendment of the US Constitution, DHS law enforcement uses reasonable suspicion to make arrests. There are no indiscriminate stops being made. The Supreme Court recently vindicated us on this question. DHS enforces federal immigration law without fear, favour or prejudice. This type of garbage is directly contributing to ICE officers facing a 1,000% increase in assaults against them, Lachy, as well as months of repeated attacks on ICE facilities like the fatal one in Dallas. Race-baiting opportunism in the form of a baseless lawsuit is no better than when it comes from politicians or activists. How about the story about a guy pulled over by unidentified masked individuals? They ask him to roll down his window. He refuses, so they break his car windows. He then drives off and they shoot at him.
Far out.
And then they arrest him for assault.
No, la voy a abrir. Hey, you can't do that.
That was the moment the agents fired shots at the car the man was driving. It happened just before 9 this morning on Acacia Avenue at Baseline Street. Video shows the men asking the agents for identification before the agents begin breaking the car windows. That's when the man starts to drive off and the shots are fired. No one was hit. The man then called police, saying he did not know who the agents were or why they were targeting him. Police say they responded and then left since they do not get involved in immigration operations. They say they were called back hours later for crowd control as federal agents took the man into custody on charges of assaulting a federal officer. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson says the man was later set free despite, quote, wounding 2 officers. That spokesperson added that the agent opened fire in self-defense.
Obviously, that spokesperson was Tricia McLaughlin. I know all year I've been going about Tricia McLaughlin. You guys probably don't know why. Because I often don't have time to do immigration properly on PEP. Now you're starting to get a hang of why I hate her so much, because my life is filled with reading her statements. And then, so
this has been a really tough 50 minutes, and don't know how you have the stomach for that.
Look, I could actually keep on going. I've got more here. I've got about 10 more, but I'm not going to do any more because I'm running out of time. So, I mean, I've got plenty more to talk about, but I've still got about half an hour, but I just want to spend the whole time doing horror cases. Yeah. But just take it from me. I could keep on going for a long time. I threw like 30 examples together this morning, and I could keep on going. ProPublica reports that it's found 170 American citizens now who have been detained by federal immigration officials since Trump's mass deportation blitz began. Some of them are pepper sprayed, some are assaulted, others are held in detention for days before being released. This is what Kristi Noem says about it all.
There's no American citizens have been arrested or detained. We focus on those that are here illegally, and anything that you would hear or report that would be different than that is simply not true and false reporting.
False reporting.
Just false reporting. And this is what Trump says about it all. By the way, pretty much every single example I gave you there were citizens.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is what Trump has to say.
More recently, Americans have been watching videos of ICE tackling a young mother, tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood, and the smashing of car windows. Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough because we've been held back by the judges, by the liberal judges that were put in by Biden and by Obama.
You're okay with those tactics?
Yeah, because you have to get the people out. You know, you have to look at the people. Many of them are murderers. Many of them are people that were thrown out of their countries because they were, criminals.
Just to be clear, I do focus on the citizens' examples. And that's not me suggesting that any of this conduct would be acceptable if they were illegal immigrants. Like if they actually were murderers that they were hunting down, and look, sometimes they are, then yeah, sure, you can assault them. Like if you're arresting them, like and they're resisting and they're whatever, I'm not saying just go around just Dirty Harry style and just but I'm saying I'm saying what I am saying is there are times when that behaviour is fine, right? There are times. Those times are not when it's just a gardener, if they're an illegal immigrant. Those times are definitely not when they're just a citizen filming you. Right? The reason I focus on the citizens' cases is because that showcases their impunity. It showcases that. I mean, like in the case of an illegal immigrant who's like just a chef or something, you can see a circumstance where there might be shades of grey, where people are confused, or someone reacts in a certain way, and in the heat of the moment,
someone picks up a knife. Yeah,
whatever. The officer jumps at shadows. Look, I can imagine there are circumstances, but in the case of the ones I'm playing, there is literally zero circumstances that could possibly justify that. And the fact that they lie so blatantly about arresting citizens suggests that nothing is going to stop them. And this is only going to get worse. Talking about which, locking people up because of their reporting is an interesting development. Spanish language journalist Mario Guevara appears to have been in jail in Atlanta for over 2 months because of how he reports on ICE. He spent much of the time in jail in solitary confinement, in fact, according to his attorneys. This is not my speculation. This was literally their submission to the court. At his bond hearing, the government explicitly argued that the immigration reporting he had been doing made him a threat to the community. That's the government's argument. He's reporting.
They use the word threat.
Yes, his reporting makes him a threat, and so he must be kept in jail because of his reporting. Is what the government says.
Did it? Have you seen the reporting?
I haven't seen the reporting, but I'm pretty sure it's not. It's not like the anarchist handbook.
Yeah.
It's this obviously been appealed at the moment, and yes. For those who are wondering if that violates the First Amendment, of course it violates the First Amendment. And he's sitting in jail while his case slowly winds his way through the courts, undoubtedly going to get all the way to the Supreme Court. So we'll see what they say. Oh, by the way, not just one jail. They keep moving him. He's been in 6 different jails since June.
Wow.
His attorneys think they're doing it on purpose to make it harder for them to get access to him, right, during their court case.
Sure.
And I think the government are probably hoping they can find a way to deport him before they're finally forced to let him go, because they will be forced to let him go eventually. And it's about to get worse again. Turns out the worst people aren't even ICE. They're Customs and Border Protection, the Bovino guys, the Bovino boys. They're the real cowboys. And they've been fighting with Tom Homan, it turns out, and ICE Director Todd Lyons. Because remember how originally I used to think of Tom Homan as
an upstanding guy.
He's like a law and order guy.
Yeah.
And then he got busted for his bribery, and then I saw him talking about just smashing people, and I thought, okay, well maybe he's not a law and order guy.
Yep.
Well, compared to the CBP, he is definitely the law and order guy, because he's been trying to prioritize criminal aliens and the worst of the worst, in inverted commas, like they keep on saying. Whereas Kristi Noem, Corey Lewandowski, her assistant, and love her, and they're having an affair. Okay. Sorry, I should just mention that. And BP Commander Bovino, so CBP Commanders Bovino, they all prefer to use aggressive tactics to arrest anyone they can broadly.
This is their city.
Yeah, exactly. If they're criminals, great. But otherwise, they're just trying to get anyone they can to ramp up deportation numbers and achieve Trump's goal of mass deportations. Incidentally, Steve Miller likes that as well. So 12 of the 25 ICE field officers have now been replaced. Their chief officers have been replaced, often with customs officials who are prepared to break the rules a little bit. And so the rate of arrests you can expect to pick up as a result of that, because the 12 of the 25 are the main 12 as well. So expect ICE practices to get a lot looser next year.
Oh dear.
Around about the same time, they're hiring a bunch of new people who, by the way, they've lowered standards for because they're having trouble getting people actually meeting the standards.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And they raised the wage, didn't they?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. So I'm sure they're going to get the best of the best for ICE. So it's going to get pretty wild next year, as I keep on predicting. Another problem, diverting resources, Lachy. The Cato Institute, which admittedly is a libertarian think tank against immigration, against hardcore immigration enforcement. They're like me. They're kind of libertarian about this kind of stuff.
Sure, cool.
They're libertarian about a lot of things, the Cato Institute. They reported that DHS has diverted more than 28,000 federal law enforcement agents from other jobs to immigration enforcement. 1 in 5 people working in mass deportation efforts at the moment are actually ICE enforcement and removal officers.
Wow.
The rest are either state and local police officers, thousands of them who have been drafted in and trained to work as ICE agents. 1 in 5 US Marshals and FBI agents have been drafted in. Half of DEA, that's Drug Enforcement Agency agents, have been drafted in. 2/3 of ATF agents, that's alcohol, tobacco, firearms agents, have been drafted in instead of doing their primary jobs. That's why the number of people charged with federal drug crimes, Lachy, has dropped by about 1,200 cases this year. It's reached its lowest level since the late 1990s. Compared to the first 9 months of last year, 24% fewer people this year have been charged with money laundering, which is usually a charge they use against suspected drug traffickers to get the drug trafficking, right? To get the big guys, the kingpins, money laundering. 10% fewer people charged with drug crimes overall. But hey, keep murdering Venezuelan fishermen taking cocaine to Europe as a means of fighting the drug problem rather than the actual bloody drug traffickers in America. You can leave them alone while you arrest women driving along as you crash into them. Right? That's the priorities. It also affects the FBI. The FBI ordered its agents to scale back investigations of white-collar crime to focus on immigration instead.
Convenient.
In Baltimore, FBI agents on the city's domestic terrorism squad were actually investigating online child predators when they were ordered to drop that and work full-time on immigration enforcement instead. 10 agents were reportedly reassigned from building cases against nihilistic violent extremist groups. Remember, they're the guys doing all the shootings at the moment in order to help the Department of Homeland Security arrest immigrants. And we're already, with the CBP taking over, we're seeing new tactics, Lachy. I remember before I said I'll get back to you on how it's not against the law to warn people about ICE or to film them this is all free speech, right? At least it was. There's something called Section 111, which is the new flavor of the month. This is the new fake assault legislation. It's assaulting, resisting, or impeding ICE officers. Whoever, forcibly assaults, resists, opposes, impedes, intimidates, or interferes with any person designated in Section 1114, that's ICE, of this title while engaged in or on account of the performance of official duties, or 2, forcibly assaults or intimidates any person who formerly served as a person designated in Section 1114 on account of the performance of official duties during such person's term of service. Okay, you get 1 year prison for that, for impeding or interfering, or 8 years jail if it involves physical contact. And these guys, they interpret physical contact very generously.
Yeah, flailing hats.
Yes. But
that has to get actually tried.
Yeah, but wait. there's a word in there which I just brushed past because they brushed past it. But it's a key word. And this goes to what you were just saying. The word is forcibly.
Uh-huh.
You need to forcibly impede, forcibly interfere. Following someone isn't forcibly doing anything.
Right.
Filming them isn't forcibly doing anything. Forcibly means being violent, right? So that's probably, 8 years is a lot of time. But in terms of a law, violently interfering with ICE, yeah, that's okay. I don't mind that law. That's why the law's there. It's not an irrational law.
And if the actual charge is true and happened.
There we go. Because this is what happens. What happens is they threaten people and arrest people, and then they drop the charges because they can't convict them because they didn't forcibly do anything.
So that's really helpful to have the 8-year jail threat.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
For intimidation.
It's really, and don't think they don't remind them of that as well. So going to what you were hinting at before, when it goes to trial, this is going nowhere. But
it's not about going to trial.
It's not about going to trial, man. It's about
control.
It's about these streets, about who owns these streets.
Far out.
Right? So this is an ICE officer threatening a guy on a bicycle for following them in their car. Just have a look at this.
You keep following us, you will be arrested. You understand? You understand? You shall follow us. It's safe. It's not safe to follow us. You're telling me what we're doing, and we don't know what you're going to do. Get out of here. Follow us.
And here's another example of ICE clearly arresting a guy and roughing him up just for filming them.
Okay. They're going after this guy who's filming them. He's out of the way. They threw his bike. They are wearing masks. They have green vests. They are putting their hands on this individual.
It goes on. They start roughing him up. Then a whole bunch of people turn up and then they think better of it and leave. Because they know they can't do anything with them anyway.
Yeah.
But this is what's going on now. Section 111 is their new plaything. I could show you 20 videos of this as well. This is their new thing. They go up to people who are following them or filming them and say, you need to go or we're going to arrest you. Like under Section 111. So that's their new thing. And of course, this is complete violation of the First Amendment. Another new tactic, which is even scummier, this is another customs tactic, is arresting people who get summoned to DHS for a final green card interview when they've gotten married to a US citizen.
Oh, and camping out for them.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just an ambush.
Whoa.
They don't camp out at all. It's an ambush. The whole thing is organised to bring them in.
Gee.
Because these people, right, they're meant to be citizens. Right, when you marry someone who is a citizen, you're about to. Well, no, they have a green card.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Because no. They've been officially. They're in a position where they should get a green card, and they're just going through the process to get it.
Yeah,
it's a final step, and then they arrest them just before the final step. Right, this has happened several dozen times since November 12, just in San Diego alone. So there's clearly a new policy. San Diego seems to be pioneering it.
This is the equivalent, like the ICE equivalent of the Lindsay Halligan get in just before the statute of limitations closes.
Yes, it is, yeah. None of these people had criminal records. None of these people entered the country illegally. They all entered the country legally. They've all been granted employment authorization, every single one of them. But when you apply for the green card, it often takes a while to go through the process, and sometimes your temporary visa will lapse while it's proceeding along. Now, the immigration statute passed by Congress allows a spouse who entered the country lawfully to be eligible for a green card through marriage, even if their visa has expired. So there's nothing wrong with what they're doing, right?
Sure. Wow.
And also, while the law doesn't explicitly say that you're prohibited from arresting these people and detaining them and deporting them, that's never been done before ever, because everyone understands it's not their fault. They're going through the process properly. Everything is legal. They're not a concern. about to get married. Well, they have been married. They are married.
No, yeah.
They often have kids, right? American citizen kids. And then they just get bundled out and deported. Now, some of these people, they go to the news and then they drop the deportation. Like some of these examples, they end up dropping the deportation.
Cool.
But not all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll quote Doug Rand, a senior official at CIS, Citizens Immigration Services under under Biden. Congress was unambiguous. These people are meant to be eligible for green cards. And this is also in the context of DHS's lawyers also lying to court, just generally speaking. Their lawyers are just doing a lot of lying. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Once again, everything I'm telling you today, folks, I could give you so many examples for, but I'm so conscious of the fact that we only have about 80 minutes for me to bitch about ICE. so I'm going to give you one good example here. Okay, I'll give you two. Labor Day weekend, DHS tries to deport 76 minors at 4 a.m. on Labor Day.
Kids.
Yeah. At 4 a.m. on the Labor Day holiday, which is a big deal in America. It's like the points on Christmas morning.
No.
Right? Because obviously no one's going to notice when they're deporting someone at 4 a.m. on Labor Day weekend. There are actually 600 they wanted to get rid of, but there were 76 on the first flight, and it still leaked out anyway. Q Judge Sparkle Suknanan, who apparently has the worst job in the judiciary because she's the one who was on duty on Labor Day weekend, and she placed an injunction on the flight and hauled them into court. The administration said they were not engaging in deportation or removal. Perish the thought. Rather, what they were doing was repatriating these children back to Guatemala for the sake of family reunification, Lachy, because they care about the kids.
Oh, my, far out.
Usually, it works the other way, Lachy. When you're reunifying families, it tends to be inside America rather than outside America. But, these guys, they're just family first.
Hearts of gold. They want everyone to be home.
They're so family-oriented. Yeah, for Labor Day of all times. Look, I'm not sure why they needed to reunify them, particularly at 4 a.m. on Labor Day. Maybe they're really keen to get them there on Labor Day. But either way, they were thwarted. And now those kids at least get to go through some sort of legal process before they're deported. And that led to some of the evilest shit that I've read out on this podcast for some time. Because Stephen Miller...
That's a big call.
Oh, mate, just wait for it. Stephen Miller had the shamelessness to troll Democrats about, wait for it, being cruel to the kids.
Oh, no, Stephen.
He tweeted out, these smuggled migrant children were orphaned in America by the Biden administration. The minors have all self-reported their parents are back home in Guatemala, but a Democrat judge is refusing to let them reunify with their parents.
That's so cool.
And then the Federalist Federalist is a very much an apologist outlet for this part of the government. They took the bait, they ran with it with one of those rare articles that surprises me with its inhumanity. I have very low standards for what I expect from what I read in the press. But when it comes to partisan hacks, these guys managed to crawl underneath my bar. I'll read you just one paragraph. The whole piece is a modern classic. But we can only speculate about how the children sitting on an airplane felt on Sunday. It is likely some, if not all, were excited to see their families and to be surrounded by the culture and language they were immersed in from birth.
Oh, no.
Many likely accepted the new plan for their lives until Suknanan yanked them back into detention at the request of activist attorneys who are playing politics with the lives of children instead of helping them get settled and living within the legal realities of international borders they should have never crossed. Of course, if those children wanted to go back to Guatemala, I reckon ICE would have helped them find a way. I don't think they needed to be deported at 4 a.m. But then another district judge, Timothy Kelly, issued a preliminary injunction also blocking the Trump administration from deporting unoccupied Guatemalan minors back to Guatemala. He wrote that the government's claim that it was trying to reunite the children with their parents in Guatemala had crumbled like a house of cards. Is what he's referring to. Guatemala got back to the administration when they heard about all these parents who are desperate for their children to return. I'll quote Kelly, the judge. There is no evidence before the court that the parents of these children sought their return. To the contrary, the Guatemalan Attorney General reports that officials could not even track down parents for most of the children, whom defendants found eligible for their, quote, reunification plan. And none of those that were located had asked for their children to come back to Guatemala. So do you get that? These reunification programs, most of them, the parents are missing.
Oh, my.
Possibly dead. They can't find them.
Oh, my God.
They're nowhere to be found. These, inverted commas, reunification programs. They're not just deporting them, but they're deporting them back to Guatemala where they have no home.
That is evil.
While saying that they're doing this for reunification processes.
That's so
purposes.
Wrong.
Yeah. He added that the government's conduct plainly suggested the administration was not applying their criteria accurately, consistently, or in ways that reflect good faith, because they attempted to rush the children out in the middle of the night on a holiday weekend, leaving little opportunity for legal intervention. Do you reckon? Tricia McLaughlin,
Here we go.
responded to the ruling in a statement saying, this judge is blocking efforts to reunify children, in all caps, with their families. But look, I did say I'd have two examples rather than one. I know we're running out of time, but a really quick one. Remember old mate Abrego Garcia? The guy who was originally meant to be sent down to El Salvador. And he was sent to El Salvador. He was meant to not be sent to, he was meant to be sent to anywhere but El Salvador, but they sent to El Salvador. Yep. And there's just been endless court cases ever since.
Yes.
They eventually brought him back when it was convenient for them to bring him back, but only so they could deport him again.
Immediately.
Yeah, that's right. Now, they've been trying to send Abrego Garcia to some other country ever since. They did actually try and make a deal with him. They said, if you drop all attempts to get any kind of legal due process at all, we will allow you to go to Costa Rica, which is a nice place to go.
Okay.
It's a holiday destination. It's close to El Salvador. It's got the same language, but he doesn't have the things he's hiding from in Costa Rica, right? They said, but if you fight this in any way, shape or form, then you're going to Africa, son. Right? And he went for his due process, which, is his right to do.
Right, yeah.
And ever since then, they've been hell-bent. First it was Uganda, then it was Eswatini, then it was Ghana, then it was Liberia. Country after country in Africa they were trying to send him to. Right? And because I'm running out of time, I'm not going to read you. I'll put in the homework. There's a New Yorker article which is going to break your heart about the way the administration is sending people to African countries. And we've had correspondence in the past saying you shouldn't just assume that sending someone to Uganda is crap, all because it's in Africa. Like Africans...
Sure,
Africans can have decent lives as well. A lot of them speak English. You shouldn't just assume that it's horrible. Well, I have an article for you. If you're don't think it's horrible. I'm not saying a positive, wonderful life isn't possible in Uganda or in some of these countries, but that's not where these people are being sent. Yeah. These people are being sent to prisons. They're being sent to prisons for short periods of time before they then send them directly to the countries they're fleeing from. And it happens over and over again, and it's absolutely heartbreaking stuff.
Not America's responsibility anymore.
Exactly. It's their way of working around the laws that stop them sending them directly to those countries. They basically pay these third world nations to hold them in prison for a short period of time, and then they send them off to wherever they actually want to send them off to, which is usually to their original country where they were being tortured or where they were in some kind of strife. Read the article if you're interested. I would read from it, but it'll take minutes. I just want to talk about Abrego Garcia. So they've tried to send these 4 countries. The courts keep on stopping them from sending to these African countries. The whole time he's been saying, after he lost his case, or seemingly was going to lose his case, he said, okay, look, I've tried my due process. I'll go to Costa Rica. He said, no, you're not going to Costa Rica. You're going to Eswatini. You're going to Ghana. You're going to Liberia.
Sure.
The Trump administration told the court that Costa Rica would not accept him without further negotiations and likely additional commitments from the United States. Importantly, is a quote, the Department of State advises that Republic of Liberia is the only state willing to accept petitioner without further negotiations or additional commitments by the United States. And if you're the court, you might hear that and go, well, fair enough then. They've got, he's supposed to be deported. He's not supposed to be deported to El Salvador, but he can be deported to Liberia, can't he, if they're the only ones who are going to take him? That's the logic. Except for a Costa Rican official then got in contact with the government and said, and the court, and denied that. They said they were willing to accept the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia with no conditions. Security Minister Mario Cordero told the Washington Post he'd informed the U.S. Embassy in San Jose in August that the government would accept Abrego on humanitarian grounds and provide him with legal residency. He reiterated that Costa Rica has the highest human rights standards and would receive Abrego under humanitarian conditions that guarantee the full respect for his rights and liberties. He wants to go. They want to take him. They're not going to screw him over from the sounds of things. And America won't let that happen because they want to punish him.
I was going to ask, just because they want him to suffer?
Yeah.
You got there. Yeah.
They want to send a message. They are lying to the court to send a message. By the way, turns out, no actual order of removal. 6 years ago, when he was supposed to be deported originally, the judge never actually went through with the order of removal. So actually...
he was never supposed to be deported.
He was never supposed to be deported. This whole 12 months was just... look, to be fair, he was supposed to be deported, but they didn't go through the actual process.
Yeah.
Right, now, they can still go through the process. It probably wouldn't take that long, but they haven't. So this entire 12 months has been just unnecessary, illegal torture. And just before I leave the whole El Salvador things, we haven't talked about that for ages. Lots of people are asking for El Salvador updates. Just a couple of quick things. Turns out Bukele, when they did it, because the deal's come out, there's the actual original secret memo between Rubio and El Salvador and Bukele is actually now been released, and we've learned a lot more. We've learnt, for instance, that the agreement was for only $4.67 million. Those 280 people got tortured and all the rest of it. It was for $4.5 million. Had no requirements to protect people from torture. No requirements to protect people from indefinite confinement or other abuses. So once they were there, they could stay there for the rest of their lives, even if they'd done nothing, even if they'd never committed any crime whatsoever. They were being sold. As a group, 280 people were being sold for $4.67 million to potentially spend the rest of their life in this torture cell, potentially in solitary confinement. And America didn't care. Didn't matter. These were the only restrictions. And this sound like a satirical news article, but this is true. None of the money, the $4.67 million, these are the only conditions placed on these people. None of the money could be used to encourage, mobilise or manage mass caravans headed towards the United States' southwest border, number one. Number two, provide legal counselling on the asylum process or for legal assistance in the United States. 3, be transferred to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. They're the refugee people, the refugee help people. 4, lobby for or against abortion. And 5, this is the bit which sounds like from a satirical magazine. Fund any programs that do not comply with President Donald Trump's executive order on federal contractors and DEI.
My.
Only condition on that money was not that you can't torture people.
It's that you can't be woke.
Yes, yeah. Not that you can't leave in indefinite detention, but you can't be woke. You can't say have different housing conditions for gay people or trans people or something.
It's $4 million.
That was the only condition. Amazing. Also, Bukele demanded the return of 9 MS-13 gang leaders in US custody. Now, early on, We knew there was some deal involving these people.
Yeah.
But what we didn't know was this extra delicious element. Out of these 9 MS-13 gang leaders that were currently in US custody, some of them were informants under the protection of the US government.
No.
They were informants. They were helping the US government. That's why they were there. That's why they were important people, right? And Rubio just got Bondi to terminate their informant arrangements so then he could send them back. I wonder who they were informing against.
Oh, they're so screwed.
They are so dead after they've been tortured. Like, they will literally get tortured to death, those people.
To help the US.
Yes, to help that. They were informants against El Salvador to help the US.
And now the US.
And to get this deal, the US sold them out back to El Salvador when they were helping the US. That was the whole point of the deal. Incredible.
Can you... I'm just trying to get my head into the perspective of Rubio and Bondi in that sense. It's like, do you just hate immigrants that much that you're willing to betray people who helped you?
You're just so keen to fight woke, Lachy. However you can fight woke. He meant fighting woke in an El Salvador prison. You just got to fight woke.
There's so much woke in those prisons.
Look, they're just following orders, aren't they? When I say just, they're following orders. For those who think that's me excusing them, that's not me excusing them.
No, that's the opposite of you excusing them.
Yeah, that's not me excusing them. They are pathetic and weak, and they have no morality, and that's why it's okay for them to follow those kinds of orders. But if you're asking their motivation, that's their motivation. Their motivation is to suck up to Trump.
I'm starting to question...
suck up to Steve Miller, who in turn then is sucking up to Trump.
I'm starting to question if the term Lackey is one that I really want to be associated with.
Look, I could keep on going. I'm really out of time. The supervisor is very good to allow us to have 3 hours. To have 3 parts.
Thank you, supervisor.
And he really was like, please, can you not let this blow out? And so I'm not going to let it blow out. Thank you, supervisor. Thank you very much.
Now that is a PEPmas miracle.
That is. So I'm just going to end it there. I'll end it with one fact, which we should always remember, which is that 70% of them don't have criminal records. Just remember that. Actually even more. Like, it's not that they don't have criminal records, they're not wanted for anything criminal either. It's just like there's just so many of these people. I'm not talking about El Salvador. I'm talking about the detainees. It's like the numbers change, but it's always between 60 and 70% of people who they're often illegal immigrants. Usually. They're almost always they're illegal immigrants. I mean, I went through those horror stories. That's 170. There are 66,000 in prison at the moment. Okay, so they're not almost entirely not citizens. They're illegal immigrants, but they're not criminals, and they're not the worst of the worst. Some of them are, not many. Let's leave it at that. Lachy, let's wrap up.
Let's wrap up for the year.
Yeah, and let's wrap up in a nice, positive way.
Yeah, okay. well,
to wash our mouth out.
I think that a nice way to potentially wash our mouth out, Chaz, is we haven't been doing gratefuls for this PEPmas special. So
some were annoyed by that.
Some people did correspond about the fact we haven't been doing gratefuls. Yeah. So as a final correspondence, let's do some gratefuls at the end of the year.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Who are we grateful for?
Well, I think that it's very fitting for us to be grateful for all of the people who have appeared on PEP this year. So thank you to Jim, to Lara, to Emma, to Richie, to Elle, to Jared, to Bill, and to Melina, who came on in maternity leave.
Thank you, Melina.
In particular, we do have to thank the supervisor again, who listens to hours and hours and hours of PEP.
Hours and hours.
So that we don't get in trouble from the ombudsman. No matter how many times you ask people to say hi.
Yeah, look, and thank you for keeping him company. The ombudsman. Maybe that's the reason he hasn't come down on us, because he's feeling contented about all the hellos he gets from our listeners.
Also, our final moving in thank you goes to Dave, who is the editor for Planet America, who also put together this wonderful set that we have been living in for the last 6 months. Dave
Baker we're talking about there. Thank you so much, Dave. It was he spent a long time on this.
You spent a long time, and it looks so much better than the TikTok lighting we had in a broom cupboard before.
Yes.
Yeah. But he's not the only Dave we need to thank.
No, I'll just wait to think the other Dave. I should also say, like earlier this year, we got that hourglass,
the hourglass.
which I know we haven't used today.
No,
just
no.
because this PEP was in parts, and so it just made no sense.
If the Peppers look back, they'll notice the hourglass goes backwards many times during this
It was
special.
a mess, but the hourglass will be back next year. Don't worry.
Thank you very much. We have to thank Dave. He's not here at the moment. Dr. Dave. He's not feeling too well, but he is one of the things that makes this podcast so special and so beloved and cherished. So, Dave, you don't listen to the pod, but if you listen to anything, know that the Peppers are so grateful for you for knowing literally everything, and also for admitting the few times that you don't know anything.
Do you notice how he just doesn't have notes?
Oh my goodness.
It's just amazing. As you say, he doesn't listen to the podcast, even though we pretend he does. He's a Pepper, yeah. But so he's not going to see this. But it's probably if he was watching this, he would watch himself, which is a bit strange and a little bit Inception-y. But we did get Dave to record a message for you guys, so even if he's not going to see it, you can.
Hi everyone, this is Dr. Dave wishing everyone a very peppy Christmas. Thanks to everyone this year for watching, listening and engaging with us. We really appreciate it so much. This is the reason why we do it. I hope that you don't suffer any withdrawals over the Christmas break from the absence of 3-hour podcasts. Be assured that we will come back in the new year ready to deliver regardless of what the new year delivers to us, and who knows what that might be. I'm sorry I haven't been with you for the last couple of weeks, but I'm very much looking forward to getting back into it in 2026. Until then, stay peppy.
Oh,
bless him.
You can tell he's pretty sick.
Yeah. Get well soon, Dave.
Yeah.
We cannot wait to have you back next year.
That was nice. He'll be back. He'll be back full of beans next year. Don't worry. He's gonna be okay.
Very good. And Chaz, I know we talked off air about you not thinking this made sense, but we do have to thank you for...
It doesn't make sense. I'm right here.
Yeah, well, on behalf of the Peppers, Chaz, and all of the Planet fans as well, for the countless hours you put into this podcast. Nobody could do what you do, and nobody should do what you do. But we are glad that you do what you do.
Thank you, Lucky. While we're thanking people... can I thank, it sounds like I should thank you, and I will thank you. Well done, you. But I'm not into thanking people who are right in front of me.
That's all I need. Thanks, Chaz.
But I want to thank some of the Peppers who, number one, were very patient with me with email. Sometimes I'm very, very, very slack to respond. So thank you to those who are very, very patient. And I also want to thank those who keep on making great suggestions in the comments and who keep it positive and keep the community like fun and like, because there's so much bullshit on the internet, and I really like that people generally are being quite positive with each other.
Yes.
And I thank people. We got some gift givers who are very, very generous, like Neil. Oh my God, Neil, you've given us so much. You're now asking to pay for some of our lunch with like Uber Eats. Can I just directly write you at Neil? Thank you so much for the presents, and you can keep on offering them, but mate, don't buy us lunch. It's okay. We can buy our own lunch. But thank you so much. Like, to be clear, like Neil's like saying like some healthy food and stuff. Because he's on a health kick and stuff, and it's just really, really nice. But I can buy my own lunch. But but honestly, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate how much you try and help us out in any way you can think of, which is really, really, really nice. And you're not the only one. Like, they're a great team. Thanks, Dan, for the stings. I so much as just cough the word sting and bang, a minute later in my inbox is a sting. Like, I really, really appreciate it, guys. Thanks to all the Peppers.
Thank you to all the Peppers who run our Discord as well, and everyone who has ever been a correspondent. You guys make this podcast unlike any other that I think anyone knows. It is a kind and beautiful little environment in those comments, and we look forward to being able to read them next year.
Till then, Merry PEPmas, Peppy New Year, and round about the turn of January to February. Till then,
stay peppy.